When maintaining your daily wellness rituals is important to you, the change in routine during the summer can feel daunting. Kachava's new travel packs help you stick to your daily ritual, even when you're on the go. Just one packet of Kachava's all-in-one nutrition shake provides complete nutrition with 25 grams of protein, 6 grams of fiber, greens, adaptogens, and much more. So you'll be fueled and ready for wherever life or your summer adventures take you. No fillers, no nonsense. Just the good stuff your body craves. Plus, it actually tastes delicious. But you can try it for yourself because the variety pack includes all 6 delicious fan favorites: chocolate, vanilla, chai, matcha, coconut acai, and strawberry. So instead of worrying about sticking to your daily ritual, simplify it with Kachava. Go to Kachava.com and use code NEWS for 15% off. That's KACHAVA.com, code NEWS.
Step by step, ooh baby, gonna get to you, girl. Step by step.
It was on this day in 1990, 36 years ago, that NKOTB, the New Kids on the Block, began a 3-week run at number 1 on the U.S. singles chart with that song right there, Step by Step. That was the group's 3rd U.S. number 1. It became a number 2 in the U.K., and the album of the same name, Step by Step, also went to number 1 on the UK album chart on this day in 1990. This day, June the 30th, that was a little blip on the music radar. The boy band craze, they were big. New Kids on the Block, 36 years ago today. Not only is today the 30th of June, today marks the final day of the Farwell for Hire fundraising campaign in support of cystic fibrosis research. We are going to tie things off here on the show before Canada Day by awarding a very big 50-50 jackpot. Somebody is going to win a whole lot of money before this day is done. Also, today marks the day that I am free from my debt to society. I am paid in full. Thank you to my friends at the Waterloo Regional International Airport. More on that in just a moment. But let's talk about the opportunity that you have today. And it's fairly significant, this opportunity that you have today. It is the opportunity to win currently more than $83,000. That's the take-home prize in the Farwell for Hire 50-50 raffle. The overall jackpot approaching $167,000. That's $30,000 more than the jackpot was at this time. No, sorry, when I started the day yesterday, when I got up to come to work, so around 5:30 yesterday morning, I checked my phone first thing. The jackpot was at $137,405. We're almost $30,000 higher as we speak this morning. And when I started the day today, I made a little note of where the jackpot was at, and it has come up more than $6,000 in the past 3.5 hours or so. We have less than 3 hours left for you to get tickets. These things always tend to take off in the final hours. We shall see. But along with winning the money, you know what's at stake here, right? The overall jackpot, almost $167,000. Let me hit refresh. 166,810. If that jackpot makes it to $200,000, which would still be less than last year's overall jackpot. Last year it got to $243,000. But if it gets to $200,000, I have pledged to change my allegiance when it comes to the next NHL season. Instead of cheering for my beloved Toronto Maple Leafs, the team I have cheered for my entire life, I will switch allegiances to the team that shall not be named. And one of our regular listeners and Farwell's Force member number 35, Clinton, sends me an email to mike@570news.com. Are you starting to sweat yet? Clinton asks. Only 30,000 to go before you have to pledge your soul to the team that shall not be named. One of my coworkers is a diehard fan of that circus and swears that once you switch, you might actually enjoy it. Not likely, Clinton's coworker. Not likely. I'll switch because I will do anything for this charitable cause that means so much to me. But that doesn't mean I'll like it. But I will do it if the jackpot reaches $200,000. And if it reaches $250,000, which would be just a wee bit more than it was last year. 243 was the overall jackpot last year. 121,000 plus we gave away as the take-home prize. If it gets a little higher than that, to 250 this year, not only will I cheer for the team that shall not be named next year, but I will walk in the KW Oktoberfest Thanksgiving Day Parade while wearing the jersey of the team that shall not be named. And I will deserve all the ridicule that I get for doing such a thing. But the jackpot has to get that high first. Again, these things always take off in the final hours. We will see how the final hours play out today. You know I will be hitting refresh on my computer screen throughout the show this morning to see how high the jackpot gets. It is now over $167,000. It's up about $300 since I turned on this microphone 4 minutes ago. That's how fast the jackpot is moving. Just one more little note on that. For what it's worth, and listen, this is all computerized. It's run by the Alcohol and Gaming Commission of Ontario. It's under all of their rules. I personally, nor this radio station, has anything at all to do with it. It's all controlled by the government agency that controls these things. But for what it's worth, last year's winner bought their ticket on the morning of the draw. The only tickets they bought in the entire draw, they bought on the morning of. Just putting that out there for you. Yesterday afternoon, I had the opportunity for a do-over. We don't always get second chances in this life, right? We carry regrets. How does that song go? Regrets? I've had a few. Yeah, don't we all? And I don't know if it was really a regret, but it's certainly something I have long felt bad for. And I shared this story with you on the air not too long ago. For the life of me, I can't remember why. Maybe it was my guilty conscience. And the parties that I never thought might be listening were listening. And so they gave me the opportunity yesterday to make good on my past transgressions. The story that I shared was about some mischief that I had engaged in as a teenager out at what was then the Waterloo Wellington Airport. My buddies and I, when we were teens and got our driver's licenses, used to enjoy going out near the airport just to hang out in the dark and the quiet, watch some planes at different times, and just have a place to hang. And for whatever reason, one night we decided that we would wander out onto the airfield and help ourselves to some of the lights alongside the runway. It's not that we took the light away. The runway was still illuminated, I promise you, but there were these orange and blue coverings. It's the equivalent of, you know how they say it's a real party when somebody puts a lampshade on their head? It was the equivalent of the lampshade that we took. So the light was still there, but it didn't have the blue or the orange lampshade over it anymore because we helped ourselves to a few. And for whatever reason, I decided to tell that story on the air. And the folks at the Waterloo Regional International Airport, shout out to our friends at YKF, heard that story. And so when we left to go to the Memorial Cup with the Kitchener Rangers back in May. I got to the airport and I ran into the general manager there, Chris Wood. And he said, I hear that you owe us some lights. I'm like, what are you? And then I remembered I told the story, and the story had gotten back to Chris. And the airport arranged for me to have the opportunity to be out working with various crews around the airport yesterday to, I would say, conduct the community service that I have long owed. We were teenagers. I don't know, we didn't think anything of it. I felt most guilty a few days later when I saw a little notation in the Kitchener-Waterloo Record, which is what we called the local paper back then. And that notation in the Kitchener-Waterloo Record talked about the lights that had disappeared and the increased security measures that the airport was considering taking so such vandalism doesn't, or such mischief doesn't take place in the future. And I was mortified. I didn't take the lights back. I wasn't that mortified. Anyway, all these years I carried it with me. I shared the story. The airport had me out yesterday to make good, and I spent a couple of hours. I absolutely loved it. I had no idea how bustling that place was. And the people that are multi-talented and so passionate about their jobs. It was an incredible experience. And I got to get right in there. I painted some lines. I helped get some luggage unstuck. I learned all about the airport operations. I was right out on the runway with the electrician, Brian, with the very lights. When we first drove past them, my heart skipped a beat or two because I thought, oh my gosh, like it's the same setup. I wandered out here 40 years ago and took some of these things. And I got to work right alongside Brian, learning about how these lights work, a little terminus anyway, I could go on and on. It was an incredible experience. I'm so impressed with not only how busy that airport is, but the passion of the people working there and how much they care about their craft. And I leave feeling as though I have paid my debt to society. I think the statute of limitations has long since passed. I can't be charged with anything anymore, right? But I admitted to my wrongdoing, and I went out there and I spent a couple of hours on a really hot day. Does that count for more? And I paid off my debt. And to top it all off, one of the best parts, as if it wasn't interesting enough, just learning about all the goings on at that airport and the hardworking, passionate people that work there. But they presented me at the end of the day with a trophy. And that trophy is one of those runway lights of my very own, done up on a stand that I can put in the basement at home. It'll be part of the backdrop for my weekly podcast. By the way, I have a weekly podcast. It's called the OHL Podcast, if you're interested in that sort of thing. Final episode of the season just got released today. We'll pick back up again when the season starts. But it'll be a permanent fixture in my podcast background, part of the sports area of the basement. But this is one of those runway lights that is now mine. It was gifted to me. I took it with permission. And you can see a photo of me proudly holding up that trophy on our show's Facebook page. I posted it this morning. Just so you know, the loop has been closed. I am now free from not only guilt, but any possible criminal prosecution, because I paid my debt by community service. I didn't even have to go to court to do it. We worked it out. This is restorative justice or something between YKF and I. Anyway, our show Facebook page, I'm sure you know what it is, right? Just go on Facebook and search The Mike Farwell Show. Lots of fun to be had there. Lots of information about the show. And today, the picture of me holding that trophy that is my very own airport runway light from the Waterloo Regional International Airport. YKF is now permanently a part of my basement.
1, 2.
All right, let's get to your Farwell Show 5 for this Tuesday morning, the 30th of June. Number 1, say hello to the 2 new CCTV cameras in Waterloo. A week after 2 other cameras went live on King Street North, Waterloo Regional Police have activated cameras at Bridgeport and Regina and Erb and Pepler. Camera locations are based on reviews of crime and calls for service data, then placed where crime and victimization rates are highest. The plan is to install 52 cameras across 10 locations in the region during the first phase of this project. Number 2, GRT's new older adult day pass launches tomorrow, allowing adults 65 years of age or older to ride transit for free for a day. The day pass can be used any day of the week for unlimited rides on buses, Ion trains, Mobility Plus vehicles, and Kiwanis Transit. A new day pass will be issued each Wednesday, good for unlimited rides for one day between Wednesday and the following Tuesday. So older adults can plan their errands and their appointments around that one day of free transit from GRT with this older adult day pass. Number 3 on your Farwell Show 5 this morning. Let's hear it for Waterloo's Caitlin Kramer, who has been invited to development camp with the Edmonton Oilers. That's right, Waterloo's own Caitlin Kramer to an NHL development camp. Kramer led the University of Minnesota Duluth last season with 30 points, scoring 15 goals and adding 15 assists. She also set a new Canadian tournament record for goals while winning gold with Team Canada's U18 team in 2023, scoring 10 times to surpass the previous mark of 8 set by none other than Marie-Philippe Poulin. Kramer is one of 3 female hockey players invited to the Oilers camp, which opens today and runs through Thursday. Attaway, Caitlin Kramer. Number 4, tomorrow marks the grand reopening of Dune Heritage Village in Kitchener. And the milestone is being marked with free admission for tomorrow only. The whole family is invited for a magical day of music, food, and an old-fashioned 1914 good time. There will be animals, demonstrations, activities, face painting, and wagon rides among the events. Dune Heritage Village has been closed for 3 years, getting more than $2 million in repairs and upgrades. Starting tomorrow at 11 with the free day of activities, Dune Heritage Village will be open again daily through the end of August. And number 5 on your Farwell Show 5 this morning. A new Canada Day survey from Liaison Strategies finds Canadians remain proud of their country. But, isn't there always a but? That pride is mixed with anxiety about the country's direction. Thinking about Canada Day this year, 51% of Canadians say they are very proud to be Canadian, while 29% say they are somewhat proud. 9% say they're not very proud, 6% say they're not proud at all, and 5% they're not sure. Maybe they don't even know what pride is. The survey also finds that 30% of Canadians describe themselves as proud and optimistic, while 44% say they are proud but worried.
A Monday warrior, mean stride. Today's Tom Sawyer, mean pride.
Can I have 2 liters of pop? Can I have 2 liters of pop? Well, what's more healthy, 4 beers or 2 liters of Coca-Cola? Do the math.
And that is your Farwell Show 5 for a Tuesday morning. I hit refresh again, almost $168,000 now, almost $84,000 in the take-home prize for the Farwell for Hire 50/50 raffle. You can still get tickets, but not for much longer. CF5050.ca. Ticket sales close at noon. We're going to take a break. When we come back, it's your morning wake-up call. And I do not I'm very cautious about using the word liar or lying. But something doesn't add up with a statement the region gave to a local media outlet. I'm scratching my head. Maybe you know more than I know, but I'll share the story coming up on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. I will be very careful with the language I use in sharing this story with you, but I am a curious cat, particularly when it comes to this story. So I was watching my evening news just after dinner last night, and CTV Kitchener had a story about some fencing that has gone up around some green spaces on Weber Street, not far from Guelph. A couple of areas have been fenced off. One has been fenced off for longer than the other, which just in recent days has been fenced off. But these are kind of open green spaces. In fact, the fencing at one point blocks your access to, I think it's the spur line trail that you can pick up there at Weber near Wilhelm. I'm sorry that I always get my spur line and my Iron Horse mixed up, but I'm pretty sure it's the spur line. Regardless, the fencing goes up and the neighbors get a little bit curious. So good on CTV Kitchener for getting out there, just asking some questions about it. And I think what's really intriguing and what makes me even more curious about the fencing in this particular area on Weber near Guelph is it's not all that far. Couple of blocks, really, maybe a few blocks, you would say, from that large encampment at Weber and Victoria in Kitchener, the encampment that the region is very anxious to clear out. And one could make the assumption, and that's all I'm doing here is making the assumption, that the fencing off of these green spaces a few blocks away from that main encampment in Kitchener is meant to prevent people, if they are relocated from Weber and Victoria, from perhaps camping there. Again, it's an assumption, but could you call it a safe assumption given the proximity between the encampment and these areas that have recently been fenced off? But this is where the story gets even curiouser. And when I heard this statement read during the story presented by CTV Kitchener last night, I even called out to my beloved. And I probably used different language than I'll use this morning, but this is what the region said in a statement to CTV Kitchener on this story last evening. These properties have been fenced for safety as there has been demolition and site maintenance work ongoing. Now listen, two things. One is I get around town a fair bit. I have been in this area fairly recently. In fact, I had a Farwell for hire event not far away. And demolition and site maintenance work is fairly significant work, isn't it? Like if something was being demolished, I would say regardless of how big that something is, you'd notice, wouldn't you? You would see some equipment. You would hear the noise. You would see the work going on. We're talking demolition here. And I'm just telling you by my observation and time in this area where the fencing has gone up, I ain't seen no demolition there. Which leads me to the question, are you just allowed to say, I'm picking my words as carefully as I can, but are you just allowed to say whatever you want in response to a question from the media? The region's statement is that these properties have been fenced for safety as there has been demolition and site maintenance work ongoing. My question in response to that statement is, where's the demolition? Show me the demo. I'm just curious because, again, you would notice a demolition. I ain't noticed no demolition. So when the media asks you a question and you are one level of our municipal government, do you just get to answer however you want to answer in an emailed statement? I will check more closely in and around that neighborhood. I got a few days off coming up. I will look for the demolition that the region says is happening or has happened, hence the need for the fencing. But I have not seen any demolition, at least not myself, not in this area of open green spaces that has now been fenced off for, again, the demolition that I cannot see or have not seen with my own eyes. And seeing is believing, after all, if you know where I'm going with that. Media asks you a question? Yeah, just tell them this. I'm going to get you an update from the 570 News Center, and then let's talk about that BC condo bailout, because while people in British Columbia might get homes that are more affordable, all Canadians are on the hook for some of the tax money being spent on those condos. This is the Mike Farwell Show on 570 News Radio and Rogers TV.
This is where today's topics turn into today's talking points. It's local and it's Democratic radio at its finest. This is the Mike Farwell Show on 570 News Radio.
Are you expecting to buy them then at less than the developer was expecting?
Yes, that is the plan. We're not bailing out developers. We're looking at building a good, affordable pathway for hardworking British Columbians.
Who exactly is this going to benefit?
These are the details that we are working on. There are a lot of places sitting empty.
Why not let the market correct itself and let developers lower the prices if the units are unsold, rather than selling them to government for a reduced price, sell them directly to a buyer?
Yes, some of that will happen too. And some of what we see happen in the market is then those units get bought up by investors.
The Mike Farwell Show continues
on 570 News Radio.
That is the housing minister for the province of British Columbia, Christine Boyle, having a very difficult time trying to explain to a CBC interviewer, I might add or emphasize, this plan that the province of British Columbia and the federal government have engaged in to buy up thousands. There are more than 4,000 vacant condominiums in the Vancouver market right now. And this plan between the federal government and the British Columbia government intends on looking at a pool of at least 2,200 of those vacant condos, buying them and turning them into affordable housing units for hardworking British Columbians. It is a $1.45 billion plan that was announced a little more than a week ago, and a lot of people, including me, are still having some difficulty fully understanding. So let's see if we can get a better sense of exactly what it is that the feds and the province of BC are proposing, and whether or not we can make it make any sense to Canadians as a whole, because those of us here in Ontario, through our federal tax dollars, are contributing the 10% of that $1.45 billion that's being used in this plan. The other 90% will be covered by the province of British Columbia. Mike Moffat is the founding director of the Missing Middle Initiative in one of Canada's foremost housing authorities, and he joins us to talk more about it. So, Mike, as we've heard, and I've tried to explain, what we seem to have here and what critics are pointing at is the purchase by two governments, the provincial government in BC and our federal government in Ottawa, of condominiums that the market simply can't absorb in Vancouver. So as opposed to letting the market play out and maybe the cost of those condominiums falling dramatically and developers maybe even losing in all of this, the government wants to step in and help out in some regard here. How would you explain what the feds and the province of British Columbia are proposing to do here?
Well, it's incredibly hard to explain because the government really hasn't said what it's trying to accomplish here. It very well could be what you described, that simply the government is using taxpayer money to bail out a bunch of developers who made bad investment decisions. Obviously, that would not be a good thing. But it also could be government, buying these units at a steep discount because government is in the business of buying homes. They do that through Build Canada Homes and other programs to create social housing. So it very well may be that they're able to get a bunch of housing units much cheaper than it would cost them to buy pre-construction. But we have no way of knowing that because, the Prime Minister himself said that there's no way to assess the deal until one has been signed and, we find out what the units are, at what price point, et cetera. So Canadians are right to be confused simply because we've been given so little information.
How might you structure that deal then to maybe allay some of these concerns that Canadians have and to make sure that the government is getting a quote-unquote good deal here?
Well, I think the first thing that we need to do is identify the types of units that we're buying. So, a lot of these units are really small. They're not suitable for families. So I'd like to see the government say, that's not, we're not going to touch those. Those don't work for us. Secondly, I think, we have to indicate that we're getting kind of a steep discount. Now, I understand the government has to be a little bit careful there. You don't want to negotiate against yourself in the media. But I'd also say that, look, we're going to negotiate. We're going to try to buy these for 30 days. And if we can't get a price that we feel is reasonable, we'll walk away from the table. I think that's important because as long as this uncertainty is out there, these developers may not want to cut the price all that much for you and I and other buyers buying them out there. So, I think we have to resolve this uncertainty, or the government really is preventing prices from falling.
The point you made, Mike, about the kinds of units that the government may end up buying, and these one-bedroom units not suitable perhaps because, of course, they wouldn't work for a family. It occurs to me, and I'm seeing it in buildings that are going up in the community where I live, which is right here in Kitchener, part of the larger region of Waterloo, but a lot of condominium towers go up, a lot of one-bedroom, sometimes two, but oftentimes we're getting condominium units, low square footage, one bedroom, et cetera. When or why did we get away from building the quote-unquote traditional family home in this country?
Well, a lot of it is just the cost of home building. That a lot of these homes are tiny little homes, 400, 450 square feet, because it's expensive. It's almost kind of like shrinkflation. When you go to the grocery store and the pack of cheese or cereal is smaller than it used to be. High rise is an inherently more expensive way of building, and we've had such limits on development that's not high rise. Think of things like urban growth boundaries and so on. So, we've really over the last 20 years structured to focus more of our development on high rise, and larger high rise units are just harder to build. They tend to be more expensive per square foot, and a lot of families simply can't afford it.
In this case, why would the government decide to get involved in the condominium market as opposed to just allowing the market forces to play out here? And sure, some developers may lose their shirts. They may end up in receivership or whatever the case may be. But that would, I think, lower prices overall as opposed to, does the government's decision here essentially artificially prop up those home prices?
It could, particularly if they overpay for these units. So if what the government is trying to do, and this is an if, but if they're trying to bail out developers, and it's a horrible policy, they shouldn't do that. They should just let the market correct. I think the one thing that they might be doing, which would be defensible, is recognizing that through programs like Build Canada Homes, which is where the federal dollars from this are coming from, they're already in the market for buying a lot of one and two bedroom homes. The only thing that they're changing here is instead of buying them at the pre-construction stage, they're buying them already constructed. So if the government can find a way to buy units cheaper than it would cost pre-construction and be able to get them immediately, that would be a good thing. But again, the details really matter here, and we have almost none.
And given the communication issues on this file, which the Prime Minister himself has acknowledged, the leader of the opposition, which is calling for an ethics probe in Parliament, what are you watching most closely for here as this program rolls out?
So two things, on the ethics probe, I definitely think that's worth watching. We'll have to see where that goes. There doesn't seem to be any smoking guns yet, but obviously when it's billions of taxpayer dollars going to a handful of companies, I think that does raise questions. And then I'll be looking at for what deals are signed. What are the units? What are the price points? who are we buying them from? If we're buying all of these units from a single developer, I think that's going to raise more questions. If instead we're able to negotiate and play some developers off of each other and get a really good price, then I think it's a little bit more justifiable.
Given what we do not know, is there a way, could you make the case for this being good policy in any way?
Yeah, only if I think we get, a 40-50% discount. So, what I would want to look at is have the government say, okay, this is what it would cost us to build, homes through Build Canada Homes in the Vancouver area, $600 a square foot or whatever it is. And this is what we paid for equivalent homes and, $500, $550, whatever the number is. But I think we'd have to have that comparison. And, we don't have that information right now. I understand the media or the government doesn't want to negotiate itself against itself in the media. But they really, at the end of this, need to give us that detail, say, this is what it would have cost us to build. This is the price we paid. It's significantly lower. It allows us to stretch our dollars further.
Mike, really appreciate your insights on this. Thanks very much for making time for the show.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Mike Moffat is the founder of the Missing Middle Initiative and one of Canada's foremost voices on housing. Even after the conversation, I'm still not convinced. What worries me is this: the level of detail that we still require from the federal government to understand better or best what it is doing here, and the amount of work that must be done in order to ensure that this is a quote-unquote good deal for Canadians, or even more specifically British Columbians, who shoulder the greatest burden here, 90% of that $1.45 billion program cost. But there's a good deal of what you would call heavy lifting still involved in this. And I'm just not certain, and I'm sorry for my lack of faith in the grand institution that is government in this country, but my faith has been shaken on too many occasions with a complete and utter lack of oversight. And so how do we ensure, or how do we have the faith that the work that needs to be done gets done to ensure that this is not a bad deal? This is not the government intervening in the market where it not ought intervene. And frankly, why not just allow the condominium market in Vancouver to figure itself out? That might mean some developers who got overextended end up in receivership or something that dire. And I don't wish that on anyone, of course, but the prices then of those condominium units would fall further and further. I think it was TD Economics that put out a forecast that by 2027, the drop in the condominium market prices in Vancouver would be the greatest that we've seen since 2005, so in 20 plus years. And that's I guess the risk you take when you're in the development game here. And again, if the market decides that these condominiums are only worth X dollars in today's market economy or this climate, then so be it. And if people end up losing some money on that, then they end up losing some money on that. I can see the other side of this, whereby the government should be involved in providing affordable housing, social housing, and buying what is already built might be more cost effective or economical than building new. I'm not able to connect the dots, draw that straight line for this program proposal here. And I always wonder what you think. Clinton sends an email to Mike at 570news.com. Says, I'm so glad you're talking about this. I've been fired up about it since the program was first announced. Honestly, why not let regular people like me buy a condo at a reduced price instead of handing it straight to the government? The whole thing feels a little shady, if you ask me. That's Clinton's take. I've told you mine. I'm trying to draw this line between bailing out developers or having the government make a prudent financial decision by buying something that's existing instead of building new and saving money in the process. I don't have enough detail yet. And sadly, I don't have enough confidence to make me believe that's the case. What do you think of the program that's proposed in British Columbia? Because you can bet that British Columbia ain't the only market that could use a little help when it comes to condominium development. Your thoughts always welcome on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio and Rogers TV.
As long as this uncertainty is out there, these developers may not want to cut the price all that much for you and I and other buyers buying them out there. So, I think we have to resolve this uncertainty, or the government really is preventing prices from falling.
Mike Moffat is the founder of the Missing Middle Initiative, and he joins us this morning to try to help make sense of the BC condo bailout. Remember that opposition leader Pierre Poilievre is now asking for an ethics probe. When David Drew was in here yesterday, David is a former Conservative Party staffer working for Harold Albrecht when he was the MP for Kitchener-Conestoga, and David joins us for Drew's Views every Monday morning at 11:30, and David was talking about this bailout proposal for the second consecutive week on his Monday morning 11:30 segment, because it continues to reveal more interesting aspects, including one that suggests Prime Minister Mark Carney is quite close to or had significant donations from during his leadership campaign from one of those developers in British Columbia who would be helped by the government intervening in this particular program. So it's again, I really do think that the federal government should be involved in some capacity in affordable housing, social housing in this country. When we talk about the housing issues that exist and have for quite some time, right? We know that affordability is a problem, the so-called Canadian dream of middle-class earners being able to afford a house. It's incredibly difficult right now, if not impossible. Some have even given up on that hope of home ownership in this country. So something has to be done around affordability. And one of the challenges that have been presented, first of all, the province is not involved at all in Ontario in social housing, and the feds got out of the business about a little more than 30 years ago now. And if those two levels of government got more involved, perhaps we could make some progress on a file that is a source of friction for many in this country. So it's a really interesting time. And while I think you could make a case for a program like this, the feds and the British Columbia government currently are not making that case, at least not from where I'm sitting. And when we listen to Mike Moffat this morning talk about the sorts of checks and balances, et cetera, that need to be in place and the work that needs to be done to ensure this is a good program, a fiscally prudent program for Canadians, I have my doubts that much work will be done, can be done, is often done by the departments put in charge of them. So it will be interesting to see how this all plays out. We are sitting here on the 30th of June, this Tuesday morning, not just marking the end of the Farwell for Hire fundraising campaign. Our big 50-50 winner will be announced just after the noon hour today. You've still got a couple hours and a bit to get your tickets in that raffle at cf5050.ca. And something else that I'm working very hard towards is a $6,500 donation to the Farwell for Hire Fund from our friends at Hefner Lexus Toyota. They challenged me to go 30 days without a butter tart. And if I could do that, they would make the $6,500 donation in recognition of their 65th anniversary of service in this community. So let's just check in. How many days do I have remaining before I can eat a butter tart? and thus earn that donation. We'll spin the old wheel of butter tarts here. Find out where we are going to land today. Don't be too many more days, please. 17 more days I have to go without a butter tart to earn that $6,500 donation from Hefner Lexus Toyota. I'm hungry right now, Hefners. I'm hungry right now. Don't forget to get in on the 50-50 raffle. The take-home prize, $85,000. Get tickets at cf5050.ca. An update from the 570 News Center, and then let's talk about getting 24 Sussex Drive back to a place where a prime minister could actually live in it. That conversation coming up on the Mike Farwell Show. 570 News Radio and Rogers TV.
This is where today's topics turn into today's talking points. It's local and it's Democratic radio at its finest. This is the Mike Farwell Show on 570 News Radio.
A nation is more than the people who live in it today. It includes everyone who came before us and everyone who will come after. Our institutions are how we carry forward what we were given and how we pass that on, at least intact, ideally improved to those who follow. 24 Sussex Drive is one of these institutions, and we will not let it crumble. We will set it right.
The Mike Farwell Show continues
on 570 News Radio.
That is Prime Minister Mark Carney last Friday, so just a few days ago, announcing the plans to renovate and make livable once again the official residence of our Prime Minister at 24 Sussex Drive. In what I would describe as truly Canadian fashion, we will hold a design competition and a fundraiser for $50 million in order to engage in this work. But nonetheless, a sore spot for quite some time and a bit of a political hot potato is picked up by Prime Minister Carney, who says we are going to get this thing done. Peter Wollstonecroft is a professor emeritus of political science from the University of Waterloo, joins us to chat about it. Good morning, Peter.
Good morning, Mike.
So what do you think? Is it about darn time we got this rat-infested building back up to standard?
Oh, yes. Yes, indeed. And it's actually a very sad commentary that politicians were afraid of addressing something that had to be done. And so they didn't want to make a decision because they were afraid of the outcry. And when you think of all the big issues in politics, this counts as about number 1 million on the list of priorities that we should get agitated about. But yet, I see it happening now. The opposition parties, particularly one, have been saying very negative things about this. And they know darn well there's a real problem. And it's the responsibility of government to address problems. And should have been addressed a long, long time ago. So I say it's shameful that we even have to have a conversation about this.
Why do you feel that way, that this is shameful that we have to have this conversation?
Well, I think we hold politicians in very low regard. We see them as self-serving SOBs, that they are interested in their own nests and their own pensions and payment and so on. And so, yes, it looks like something that the opposition party can always complain about, because they say, well, they are doing things that we would never do. But, of course, when they're in office, they do similar kinds of things. It's interesting. I was just reading something on the weekend about Pierre Elliott Trudeau, about 73, 74, and there was some discussion he initiated to have a swimming pool at 24 Sussex Drive. And his explanation was, I read my files after the kids go to bed from 7:30 to 10:30, and then I like to go for a swim for 15 minutes, half an hour. It keeps me fit, keeps me clear-headed and relaxed, and then I can have a good night's sleep and get ready for a long day. Well, it was a real storm of controversy because there was a question about a private fundraising going on. And so it was seen as influence buying and so on. It should have been a public thing and said, okay, this is what the Prime Minister needs. So this kind of low-level politics really disturbs me when you think of all the big issues that at any time Canadian governments have to face, both provincial and federal.
It is a little bit ironic, isn't it, Peter, that the opposition would take the position it takes even whilst living in the official residence of the opposition, which is inhabitable?
Yes, it is. And I have been there just once, I say, and it's fine. There's nothing grandiose, and there's no possibility of a ballroom, but nonetheless, it serves its purpose, and the leader of the opposition has to have some place to be. And yes, some people have been saying, well, why doesn't he just rent an expensive apartment building in Ottawa? There are such buildings, and he could be happily there. Well, the security issues are immense in 2026. And as we know, even municipal politicians in Waterloo have to secure protection because we live in very vexatious times, and people get mad at politicians and besiege them. So the Prime Minister has to be in a place that's secure, has no obvious sight lines, and so you just can't plunk him down in some apartment building. And I can tell you, Mike, you don't want to live on the same floor as the Prime Minister because you spend all your time proving who you are.
So I'm thinking about relevant examples, I think, that we could relate to the White House, 10 Downing in the UK. Why is an official residence for a prime minister important?
Well, to meet other dignitaries, and of course, the ordinary people may say, well, that's nice, they get to meet. But things do happen. They're just not chit-chats, and they're not talking about the next FIFA game. They're talking about matters of state and interactions, trade, and so on. Also, the prime minister has a family, and he needs a place to be with his family. And I think most children of prime minister would say, I didn't see enough of so-and-so. He also needs a workspace because the prime minister will be working most nights late at night because there's always lots of files that you have to read because the next morning there'll be a press conference and journalists will be asking questions and it'll be under attack from so-and-so, from the opposition parties. And you need support staff. And so that's a large space, and you need security people, as I suggested. And so it is responsibility, I think, almost universal, that there is some official residence for the Prime Minister, in the case of Canada, the leader of the opposition. Not unknown, and is an expense, yes, but it's a very, very minor expense in the scheme of things. No, I did read in the local in the paper today that there are 162 people working on behalf of the Governor General, and that was a bit of a jawbreaker, and made my cornflakes a bit unpleasant, I would say, so put it that way. But there is an issue on this, and I think it is a public priority and should be funded by government. And I'm not happy about this fundraiser. Where they're going to try to get $50 million to pay for the project, and here's why. So Mike, you're a charitable guy. I'm a charitable guy. So let's say I set a sum of money. Let's say, for the point of illustration, $500. So I say, okay, this year I'm going to give $500 to charities, and then the government of Canada comes along and says, oh, we want to raise some money for Rideau Hall, or 24 Sussex Drive. So how does my logic go? Oh, well, I'll give, instead of $500 this year, I'll give $600. Or does it mean that instead of giving $100 to the hospital, I give $100 to 24 Sussex Drive? I think it's the latter for most people. They don't say, oh, this is a top-up year, I'll give more because of this big fundraising project for a national project which should be paid for by the state. So I'm going to give more because of this campaign that's going on. And I remind you and your audience that the percent of Canadians giving charitable donations has been slowly but steadily dropping in the last 10 years. And it's well under 20%. And I don't think there'll be a big rush on behalf, but by the 80% or so who are not giving money to charities say, oh, this year I'm going to start giving money, and I'm going to go give money to 24 Sussex Drive.
I wonder if connected to that, Peter, there aren't, I hadn't even thought of that aspect. I think it's a great point. One of the things that worried me is the number of steps between the announcement and completion, from the design competition to the fundraiser, et cetera. And I worry a wee bit that we don't even get started, much as Prime Minister Carney seems bullish on the idea today.
Yes, he wants. I think he wants. Yes. First of all, I agree with you. It seems very bureaucratic, but I've had enough involvement in Ottawa to realize it's impossible to cut away on the different levels of bureaucratic consideration that have to apply. And they're trying to avoid errors and mistakes and scandals, and all of that is reasonable. However, it is over bureaucratic, and it's always so in every project. And I think Carney's trying to cut away a lot of that stuff, but this is what he's put into place. But he also doesn't want to live there because he doesn't want it to be said by certain politicians, oh, you just want to build yourself a grand house that you want to live in. So I think he's made it clear he will be no longer the Prime Minister when this building is up and running and the new Prime Minister is settled in.
Your point earlier on the rather shameful nature of this conversation, I do not disagree with. I mean, it's kind of embarrassing, and I wish more of us were embarrassed by the current state of 24 Sussex as we were angry at politicians, as you described earlier, in the regard in which we hold them. I wonder if there's anything to the argument, or your thoughts on the argument, Peter, that this really 24 Sussex is a symbol of us as a nation. It's symbolic of our government, which we don't necessarily hold in the same regard as perhaps the UK does, perhaps the United States does, et cetera. And we could get into Western alienization and the Laurentian elite as part of this conversation. But is there something as the symbol of a nation that's at stake here?
And it is a public-facing part of the nation. So when the Prime Minister of Canada meets somebody, a Prime Minister or Premier, a government leader from around the world, a head of state, that's one of the places they will meet. And it should be a respectable place. And it should also be safe and secure. Those are two important considerations. And it is embarrassing that we had a place, and under the Harper government, it was allowed to become dilapidated, rat-infested, terrible problems with asbestos and mold and so on. And so when I owned a house, I'm now somewhere else. When I owned a house, I knew I had to put so much maintenance dollars every year. And if I had a good year and didn't have to spend as much, well, I had to put it in reserve because I know next year I'm going to have to. But that wasn't being done here because the optics for small-minded politicians were irresistible, so they wanted to yell and scream about the elites looking after themselves. But it's also the country, and I take your point. It is exactly a representation of the country. And the Prime Minister of the day is just a temporary resident. It is something about Canada much larger than any particular resident there.
Peter, I always appreciate the conversations and the perspective that you bring. Thanks very much for joining us this morning.
You're welcome. Have a good one.
You too. Bye now. Peter Wollstonecroft, Professor Emeritus from the University of Waterloo, Professor Emeritus of Political Science, and a regular contributor to this show, although it's been a while since we chatted, so I'm glad we could catch up this morning. Peter's point, and I'm glad he brought to bear the reminder, especially on this day where we wrap up the Farwell for Hire fundraising campaign. Charitable donations over the past decade in this country have been in rather steady decline. I wouldn't call it a precipitous decline. The numbers haven't dropped dramatically, but they have been dropping and dropping steadily. I bring that up because you have been so supportive for this past month, and we are into the final hours, just over 90 minutes to go before we close ticket sales and then award somebody a whole lot of money in the Farwell for Hire 50-50 raffle. The jackpot has just passed $170,000. That means your share, should you win, is more than $85,000. That's not a bad chunk of money. And you can still get tickets at cf5050.ca. Remember, if the jackpot reaches $200,000 or a take-home prize of $100,000, I have pledged to become, for the next NHL season, a fan of the team that shall not be named. I don't know. There's a lot to go. $30,000 still to go in the overall jackpot in about 90 minutes for me to have to make good on that pledge. We shall see. It's always entirely up to you. But cystic fibrosis, research benefits, you, of course, would personally benefit from that kind of money. And if you want to embarrass me and or make me suffer, you have that option. cf5050.ca is where you can get your Farwell for Hire 50/50 raffle tickets. This is the Mike Farwell Show on 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. To bail out BC condo developers or not to bail out, to renovate 24 Sussex, the official residence of the Prime Minister, or to not renovate. You may disagree with the directions that the federal government has chosen in both of these instances, but they are, if you want to use the term bailout, and I think it's fair, bailing out BC condo developers, and they are renovating the official residence of the Prime Minister at 24 Sussex Drive in Ottawa. Maybe just if you get frustrated by those things, it's a good time to remind you of this.
Not everyone's a jackwagon. Not every heart is cold. Not every promise made to you is gonna turn to gold and fold. Some people mean it when they say they care. Some folks will show up, actually be there. So don't close the door on every soul you meet. Not everyone's a jackwagon on this street.
Your daily reminder on this show in and around 10:20 every day that not everyone is a jackwagon. And I am on a bit of a roll when it comes to randomly finding these stories shared on social media. So I have once again ripped directly from the pages of the Facebook to bring you the story today and the reminder that comes with it that not everyone is a jackwagon. Maybe I've got the algorithms working in my favor here, but my friend Janice posted the following the other day. Today, so that means it happened right here in the fine region of Waterloo. In fact, I know for sure this was in Kitchener. Today at Freshco, around 1:30 p.m., I was waiting in line to check out when a young woman in front of me struck up a conversation. We chatted for a few minutes about life, grocery lines, and how sometimes the best conversations happen with complete strangers. When she finished paying for her groceries, she quietly handed the cashier $10 and asked that it be put toward my grocery bill. By the time I realized what was happening, she had already left the store. I was completely caught off guard. In all my years, I've never had a stranger do something like that for me. It wasn't about the $10. It was the kindness behind it. It was a simple, thoughtful gesture from someone who owed me nothing, yet it left a lasting impression. If by some chance this post reaches you, thank you. Your generosity and kindness meant more than I can properly express. You reminded me that there are still wonderful people in this world and that even a brief conversation can make someone's day. In a world that often feels rushed and disconnected, today was a reminder that kindness still exists, and sometimes it shows up in the grocery store line. That from Janice's Facebook page to you on your daily reminder on this show that not everyone is a jackwagon. Sometimes all it takes is $10. And hey, how about the chance for that chance encounter and that extension of kindness because you stood in line and engaged in conversation with somebody, as opposed to, going to the self-checkout I dig it. I dig it on so many levels. Got an email from Byron. It's important for me to share just before our 10:30 news update. Byron's email to Mike at 570news.com says, I thought you said if the jackpot reached $150,000, you would wear that sweater of the team that shall not be named and eat hot wings on the show. What happened? Byron, I'm glad you're asking the question, because the jackpot reached $150,000 after the show was done yesterday. So I couldn't do it in the midst of it all, right? We reached $150,000 during the show yesterday. I have this all arranged, and full disclosure, tomorrow being Canada Day, I've taken Thursday and Friday off to have a nice long weekend, but it will happen on Monday, I promise. Monday at noon, I put on the jersey of the team that shall not be named, and I eat increasingly hot wings while trying to continue hosting the show. That will happen on Monday afternoon, July the 6th, as soon as I'm back from a long weekend, because you got the jackpot to $150,000. We are currently sitting at a jackpot of more than $171,000. If it reaches $200,000, that team that shall not be named will become the team I cheer for next NHL season. But we got a ways to go, and you can be a part of it and win some big money. Almost $86,000 is yours in the take-home prize of the Farwell for Hire 50/50 raffle. Just go to cf5050.ca. This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Well, this is a timely conversation, given what we just talked about in the previous 30 minutes, and our guest, Peter Wollstonecroft, reminding us that charitable giving in this country has been on a steady decline over the past decade or so. Again, it's not as though the numbers have dropped dramatically, but they have been dropping, and that has become a bit of a trend over the past decade. So in what ways might we be able to inspire more charitable giving? Perhaps the workplaces where we spend a good deal of our time, be those workplaces remote or in office, we do spend a good portion of our time every day working. And if that workplace can provide the inspiration to give back in some way to our community, maybe that's a way to stimulate a renewed interest in charitable giving. Patty McKeag is an Associate Vice President of Corporate Communications and Philanthropy at Equitable Life in Waterloo and joins us for a chat. Patty, good morning. Well, Patty, are you with me?
I am.
Good. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm great, thank you. How are you?
Very good. Very good.
Good. I'm interested in the Power of Giving Back program at Equitable, now into its third year. What's the program all about?
Well, for the 3 Fridays in June, we create a day, an experience for our employees where they can really experience exactly that, the power of giving back. We spend the morning with a keynote speaker and with some speakers from local organizations that we've supported. So we have a really good idea of the impact that we can have on the charitable organizations that we support. And then in the afternoon, we have all of our employees out in the community giving back to a number of different not-for-profit organizations. So this year we lined up volunteer activities with close to 20 different nonprofits. So our people over the course of 3 Fridays supported those organizations by, doing any of the things that they might need extra hands to support them with.
Why is this initiative something that Equitable Life is important in doing?
Well, giving back to community is an important part of who we are. And we know that corporate donations and being a good corporate citizen is important, but we also recognize that the impact of our people and our people kind of joining us in that is really powerful, and that when we can kind of enlist the employees from Equitable in these experiences that they also have the opportunity to experience firsthand. So there are a lot of things that carry with them, and that they are instilled with a sense of impact, but also a sense of pride in what we've been able to do as individuals and as an organization.
What are some of the local organizations that have benefited from this program that you're running at Equitable Life?
Yeah, there are so many, but I'll tell you about a few of them. So
Sure.
We had a team out at the Anishinaabe Outreach Center, and last year teams planted strawberries, and this year teams harvested the strawberries, and they would go into food baskets for people who are experiencing food insecurity. We pulled thorn bushes at the Donkey Sanctuary. We planted a microforest with Sustainable Waterloo Region. We sorted food and dealt with food donations at the Food Bank of Waterloo Region. We also had one of the more creative ones. We have what's called Crafting for a Cause. So we have people who are creating friendship bracelets or cards that will go to people in local hospitals. And they also created these fabric hearts that are put in the incubators with NICU babies so that they have their mother's scent close to them. So it's a whole range of activities, and we're really grateful to the organizations for really welcoming our teams over the course of the last 3 Fridays and letting them come in and kind of help out in any way they could.
Boy, does that one ever get you in the feels, eh? Having your mother sent for a NICU baby? My goodness.
Yeah. Yeah, it's. I think it's really meaningful, and when people are spending their afternoons doing these things, that it really hits home the kind of impact that they can have.
What kind of feedback, Patty, do you get from the organizations that are being supported through the Power of Giving Back program?
It's funny, we go into this, and I have so much gratitude that the teams at these organizations are able to welcome people from Equitable, and they really create a positive experience for them. But over the past few weeks, we've had so many messages of thanks from them that it really is almost overwhelming. So some of the things that our teams did were tasks that these organizations just don't have extra people to do, or they're things that are on their kind of wish list, but our people can go in and take care of them and kind of ease the burden from the people that work at these organizations. So we have had a number of thank you notes. A number of the organizations have basically said that they were things that their staff wouldn't have been able to do, because, we all know that the capacity at any not-for-profit can be a real challenge, and making sure that, people are there to provide the services, but maybe not able to get to some of the other things that our teams are able to do.
How do you, as an organization at Equitable Life, measure the success or the impact of a program like this?
Well, we look at the outcomes. So we have notes, again, from the organizations that tell us exactly what the teams were able to accomplish. Over the last 3 Fridays, a total of 1,300 people would have been participating. So that's close to 4,000 volunteer hours that our employees have spent in the community giving back. I think some of the other things that point to it being a success are just the fact that some people choose to get involved as well. So we've seen a steady increase in the number of people that use their volunteer days over the past few years. So every employee has 1 volunteer day that they're allowed to take during work time and go and volunteer with a cause that is meaningful to them. So we've seen a steady increase in that as we've done these things. And really, just the energy during the days is so positive. It's really lovely to watch the excitement and, the feedback from our employees about it as well. They're very, very proud of what they do and what they do together.
I wondered about that piece and what you might be hearing from folks at Equitable Life about the opportunities that are presented through these days.
Yeah, it's very positive. Again, sometimes it's hard work. Sometimes it's maybe a little bit more labor than people expected. But at the end of the day, people seem to really look forward to it. I heard a lot of people who have been with the company for a few years, so they know what we do over the course of these Fridays. But we also had a number of new people. Some people who started as recently as last Monday, and they were kind of blown away by just how caring and how they actually feel like they're part of something bigger. So not only, feeling connected to people at Equitable, but also feeling very connected to the community through the work that they do as well.
Those keynote speakers, Patty, that you bring in for those 3 Fridays in June, what what sorts of criteria are you looking for in selecting those speakers?
Yeah, we're looking for someone who can really demonstrate the importance of volunteerism or being community-minded, and who have some experience in varying ways in building community. So over the last 3 Fridays, we had Dr. Samantha Nutt, who is the founder and head of War Child Canada and War Child USA. So clearly someone who has taken a passion or taken an opportunity where she saw a need and created an organization that is globally supporting people in some of the worst conflict areas in the world.
It's a wonderful program. I love how employees can get engaged in a company that's been such a big part of our community for as long as Equitable Life has. It's ensuring that the community around Equitable Life continues to thrive, and that's in no small part through a program like this. Love to hear about it, Patty, and I appreciate you joining the show to talk about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
Patty McCagg joins us, Associate Vice President of Corporate Communications and Philanthropy at Equitable Life. The power of giving back, an initiative begun 3 years ago and continuing to go strong. I'm thinking back on early radio days where sometimes, to make ends meet, you might be doing more than one thing at a time. And I worked with a company that was heavily invested in or interested in its employees' health and well-being. And so as opposed to the days being granted to get out of the office and volunteer, we were offered the opportunity to earn an extra day of holidays if we maintained a certain level of fitness. Say what you will about it. It was a long time ago, but it was a similar, if you will, initiative. The belief being that a healthier employee is a more productive employee. And that translates, of course, into other parts of that employee's life outside of work. And it was enough incentive for me. You know how I love a day off, right? It was enough incentive for me to try to get into shape and do regular visits to the gym that we had on site at this particular company. And then you'd get measured by the team that was there. And if you met the certain fitness goals, you would be granted that extra day off to, I don't know, maybe binge eat or go to the gym on your day off too. But that was something that the company offered as a bit of a corporate philosophy. At Equitable Life, part of that corporate philosophy is the power of giving back, where employees are granted that opportunity to get out into the community where they work and do some volunteer hours to support a number of agencies, as Patty outlines here this morning. All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, how many of you are in a position where you as a family are taking care of an aging relative, perhaps a parent? Well, wouldn't you know, there's an app for that, and we'll tell you about it next on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio and Rogers TV.
The Mike Farwell Show continues
on 570 News Radio and Rogers TV.
Well, I mentioned it before the break, and it is an experience that I suspect many of you may be sharing, taking care of an aging relative. If you're not now, you might be soon or at some point in the future. Enter Elderella and enter the co-founder of the app, Mike Kirkup, who joins me in studio. Great to see you. Good morning.
Yeah, good morning. Thank you for having me.
Thanks very much for being here. Tell me a little more about Elderella.
Yeah, so my co-founder, Jackie Murphy, and I started this about a year ago, looking at what is really the silver tsunami of people who are about to retire, this massive set of boomers, both in Canada, United States, and across the world. A big population boom is coming into their elder years. And there's no setup here to support people, right? So many of the tools and solutions that are out there are built for, a long-term care facility or a PSW agency or whatever, doctor's office, but nobody's really built something for the caregiver to keep it all together. And with 71 million caregivers now, and that number expected to significantly increase, we saw a huge problem and jumped in to solve it.
What was the inspiration to try to solve this problem?
Yeah, so I was looking at trying to solve problems for this kind of generation, personally as an entrepreneur looking at the number of challenges there. And then Jackie was actually caregiving for some of her family members and was seeing that there weren't any tools or solutions. And everybody that she knew that was doing this had kind of like kludged together a Google spreadsheet and, you know, an email account or whatever. And it was like, there has to be a better way to do this.
So the family group chat just doesn't necessarily cut it.
Well, and so that's actually the beauty of the product that we built, is that all of that information exists there in that family group chat, and we just ask you to add our solution to it. We call the chatbot Ella, but you add Ella to your actual group chat and then just keep chatting as you normally do. Ella automatically pulls that information out as you're having conversations. It goes, hey, that person looks like they're part of a care team. That's a doctor. Let me look up information and add them to your care team for you. You know, medication might have changed, or we have an appointment this day, and it adds it all and organizes it so that everybody can see everything in one spot. Nobody's kept, everybody's in the loop. They understand what's happening. There's no more surprises. And then we've just built essentially on from there. So we just launched a feature last week called Call Protection, where we can actually issue a brand new phone number for the elder. And then you hand that to pharmacies, doctor offices, etc. They call that number. The elder doesn't know anything's different. They still looks like call displays coming from the pharmacy or the doctor or whatever. But we can record that phone call now, transcribe it, automatically extract out all the appointments, and we can even check for things like financial scams.
So that would mean then everybody who's part of this holistic care team has access to that transcript, that recording, so they fully understand what transpired during that phone call.
Absolutely. And it's, you know, little things. We have different permission levels, but everybody who needs to see it can absolutely see it. They get notified right away, and they can see the full transcript and all of the actions that our solution took on their behalf, automatically prompting and pulling out this appointment's changing or this medication's changing or whatever, so that, again, they just go, yep, that's good to go, good to go, good to go.
So when I first came across Elderella, I thought it was more for the family members and their coordination, but it sounds like this is holistic, including the care team.
This is absolutely for the care team. We really like to describe it as multiplayer mode. Yeah. So much of caregiving is single player mode, and that's such a big part of the problem, that mentality of it's just easier if I do it myself. And so now when we start looking and we ask people as they go through the app and they onboard, we ask them, who else is part of your care team? And the number one answer is a sibling, right? That makes a lot of sense. But once they start using the product, or we even prompt them a little bit more, the care team grows immensely. It's the neighbor who helps take the garbage out for their parents, or it's that person who's, the friend of the elder who's coming in to help and support, maybe take them to appointments. And they realize that there's actually a team already, and there's probably a better way to marshal those resources. And so we make it really easy to do that handoff, to be like, okay, well, someone's got to take dad to this appointment today, and here's all of the questions that we need answered when you're there. So now people come in prepared, ready to, use the resource that we have in our system and get the most out of them. We don't miss appointments. So we're actually running a study right now that we just announced. So would welcome your listeners to sign up. They go to elderella.com/join, but we give away a free year of our product at our premium level for the people to essentially join the study to prove that Elderella actually reduces caregiver burden.
I was curious when you said earlier about the new feature you just added, and now you're talking about this study. I wonder, Mike, where you are today versus where you are when it first launched, because it sounds like this is something that is almost like a going concern you continue to add to.
Yeah, absolutely. We're very heavily invested in building this out, and we feel like we're just at the starting points of solving a lot of the core problems here. We've been working on it since about September last year. We launched in the App Store in January and Google Play as well. And since then have been adding significant new features every week. We're building the startup very differently, and that's a whole other kind of conversation, more for the tech sector, but building it very differently to both leverage AI to be able to build our product quickly, be able to use it in the product, and then, of course, be able to build our company faster.
What is that sector generally, Mike, like in this community, particularly in the healthcare space?
Yeah, there's a huge number of new solutions that are coming out, both locally. In fact, my co-founder started an age tech, which is the kind of terminology for the group that we're in, an age tech breakfast, bringing together all the companies that we know of so that we can try and make it so that Waterloo Region companies win globally.
if I am in position that Elderella might be useful to me or my family, our care team, what do I need on my end to be able to participate, get involved?
Yeah, so we have just go to the App Store, Google Play, and download. We have a free tier. It's very reasonable, offers a ton of functionality and capability. And then, of course, we have additional paid tiers for people who want to go beyond that. But our free tier is very capable. What we would encourage people to do is to just get started. A lot of families know that there's this lingering conversation that needs to be had, and they don't really know how to have that. And so inside the product, we have one of the kind of pieces is something called a care map, and it starts to outline we try and make it not as daunting as it is, but there's about 54 different areas that you need to start thinking about. And most of us, when we think about caregiving, we're like, oh, that's like end of days wishes. Like, what's that funeral look like? What are those arrangements? That's not even scratching the surface of the stuff that you need to start thinking about, right? And so we try and make that really easy to start having those conversations. So we prep you for them. We give you tools to be able to do that, be able to check them off. You can even claim it and share it across family members. So it's like, okay, it's your week to go talk to mom about what she wants to do. Just again, to start getting people prepared so that when that inevitable day where you really do have to jump in and care happens, you're prepared, and it's not this emergent, I'm in the ER Googling, what does this stuff mean?
You just gave me an eye-opener, a checklist of 54
54, yeah, absolutely. And you know, like, they're all over the map, Mike. That's the crazy part. Like, what do you do? What are your plans for your pets if you have them? Right? And you're like, oh, I never thought of that. Do you have a power of attorney? Do you have a will? We think of those things, right? What about access to your financial, information, right? Who has access to your banking account? How are we going to be able to look after all these things, right? What are your wishes, right? How do you want to handle any of those scenarios? And that's not even the hard conversations, right? And so really kind of prepping people. Like, we hear horror stories all the time from some of our customers of like, there's a paper will somewhere that we know isn't valid, that nobody can find. And we know we need to solve this problem before, mom or whatever passes. But a lot of people don't factor in dementia either. And so there just becomes a point where that elder may no longer be able to actually make those kind of decisions. And now you're in a lot of trouble.
So useful now. I can only imagine how much more useful it becomes in the future. Elderella.com/join to be a part of that study that Mike mentioned. Fantastic idea. Love another innovative solution coming out of this region. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Mike.
Mike Kirkup is the co-founder of Elderella. Again, check it out. Elderella.com/join. It's the Mike Farwell Show. 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. When I say data center, what comes to mind for you? AI or artificial intelligence? How about the resources, including the tremendous amount of water that is required for such a center? Two of the things that immediately spring to mind based on conversations that I've heard around these data centers, and one other to add, just here in the region of Waterloo, that industrial megasite that's being assembled in Wilmot Township. I know there was lots of talk early on that it would be a battery plant to support a nearby automotive manufacturer, and sometime after that conversation began, other whispers were being heard that maybe what we're talking about is an AI data center for Wilmot Township. We don't know for sure. Nothing has been confirmed, but these data centers continue to make headlines. And in the case of nearby Hamilton, just last week, the city and its council have pressed pause on a development proposal for an AI data center. Ann Pasick is a Canada Research Chair in Media, Culture and the Environment and an Associate Professor at Trent University. Joins us to talk about it. Ann, good morning.
Good morning. Delightful to be with you.
It's great to have you here to help us understand better what these centers are all about and why a municipality like Hamilton may have pushed back a little bit. What do you make of Hamilton Council's decision last week?
Yeah, so I think from my little perch, having studied this issue for many, many years, the script that I see is that Canada is sort of following in the same footsteps that we've seen happen in America. So from that and I was unsurprised that we've seen a moratorium move forward, and that there's been just a growing amount of public ire around the issue. That has happened before, and now it's happening here. So it's a kind of interesting Canadian first, but I wasn't surprised that it came to us eventually. And I do think we're going to see many more cities following in Hamilton's footsteps now that the first city's gone through the gate.
What has led to this ire around these data centers?
Well, there's a couple of things. I think if you do Vox Popula, you go out to the crowds that are protesting this, you'll see a lot of people who are just generally upset about the trajectory of AI technological development and adoption. They don't see the value. They might, in fact, see quite a lot of harm. And being able to say no to the data center is a kind of proxy for saying no to the technology on the whole. And there hasn't been an abundance of public consultation or democratic debate about whether or not we do indeed want to adopt an AI agenda nationally or regionally. So this, again, is a kind of proxy fight in the absence of that more fulsome general discussion. But there's also real environmental and public health concerns for the folks who are going to be neighbors with this class of infrastructure. And the infrastructure keeps getting bigger and bigger. So we've seen a kind of exponential shift in the scale of these projects, particularly as they incorporate more GPUs, which are the class of chips that you need for a lot of AI model development. They can be quite energy demanding, requiring hundreds of megawatts in many instances. That's like the scale of a small city. And again, depending on how these systems are designed, they may need to pull, 1 million gallons of water out of your local watershed a day. So those are causes for concern on their own. And then you add that to the larger kind of information context around data centers and AI, and you kind of have tinder for a fire.
You touched on something there, Anne, that has been on my mind, especially in light of Hamilton now as a municipality, however large, but really kind of stepping forward as the gatekeeper here on something that I think belongs at a higher order level of government, that being the federal government. So is a municipality here really giving the federal government the opportunity to come up with some sort of national strategy around this?
Well, we sadly already have a national strategy on AI. It was announced earlier in the month, and it is focused almost exclusively on adoption. It subsidizes not all, but some of the movement we're seeing in the development of data centers, but it does not offer anything at all when it comes to environmental regulations or rules of the road for the democratic process of how public engagement should happen around them. I think the Fed's assumption was that light industry provisions were going to be adequate for the job, but I think certainly emotionally, a lot of these communities don't feel that to be true, and materially, again, we've seen the scope and scale of what a data center is change quite substantially in this AI race. That I think the kind of premise of that falls apart once you apply some scrutiny there.
So that's interesting to me, because while I heard about our AI strategy, I didn't connect it here to the sort of on-the-ground concerns that you and I are discussing this morning. And I can't help but wonder then if opposition to a data center could be framed as being, I don't know, anti-tech, anti-EI, somehow opposed to Canada's own AI sovereignty, for example.
Yeah. Well, I think if you visit these crowds and you hear what they're saying, you'll find a pretty diverse mix of people. They tend to cross a lot of political lines and come from a lot of different walks of life. I was in Hamilton City Council for the debate on the moratorium at the Planning Committee, and it was really quite interesting. I heard from artists, I heard from teachers, I heard from plumbers, all of whom had their, very personal reasons for showing up in the meeting room that day and saying that they wanted a moratorium. You absolutely will find voices there that would categorize themselves as anti-tech. You would find voices in there too who think that there's a great deal of use to be found in AI, just not in shoving it all into one big hyperscale data center and asking the public to kind of subsidize and maintain the function of that facility, whether through, the kind of like joint prices that we all pay in our energy bills, or through the kind of local environmental burdens that would come from being next door to a site that has a gas plant on site to ensure that it has enough power to run, which is increasingly common. So, like any coalition, you're not going to find a kind of unity of purpose there, just of means. And I do think that it's a good kind of wake-up call to the government to find ways to have clearer rules of the road and opportunities for that larger debate to happen with cooler heads, with clear timelines, and an opportunity for, those plumbers and teachers to get to speak on a larger range of issues.
I wonder, Anne, if from clearer rules from the federal government, there is any role here provincially. We know that in Ontario, Premier Doug Ford has been pro-business, pro-development. What signs are you seeing from the Ontario government that may impact the creation of or no creation of data centers?
Yeah, so the Ford government has been relatively quiet when it comes to engaging in these issues as they're happening. Although it did pass Bill 40 about a year or so ago. And that bill has maybe two minds about data centers. On the one hand, they reserve the right to restrict hard load requests that would challenge our electricity grid, which, that's a real issue, especially with these 100+ megawatt facilities. But the bill also gives them the legal authority to approve and expedite a data center project that it deems to be in the province's economic interest. So they've given themselves a sort of legal card to play where they could step in and say, even though this community has rejected a data center, we're going to make sure it happens anyways. And I think that the value of having a moratorium on the books is that you are signaling that you're not going to, sort of obey in advance, that you're going to sort of mark those frictions, those democratic gaps when and if they do happen. And you are just kind of like raising the political cost for the province to sort of come in and act in ways that the people have made pretty clear they don't want them to act. So, there is this kind of dialogue that's happening between levels of government, just very indirectly so far.
So we've got a 1-year moratorium in Hamilton, maybe the opportunity for some sober second thought at other levels of government, maybe even within municipalities. But where do you see the discussion going from here, Anne?
Yeah, so I think many more cities are going to follow Hamilton's precedent. I think we've already heard that as many as 22 municipalities have requested copies of the legislation. And that's pretty common, right? Like governments will kind of copy and paste and amend in a sort of open source way when there's a bit of text that they like. I think you don't need every single municipality in the province or in the country to move in that direction for that to sort of substantively change the sort of temperature on the issue. I do hope that it will be an impetus for all levels of government to rethink, if you do want to encourage the industry, like that industry is going to exist in a place and have local consequences. How do you bridge those two concerns rather than just only thinking about lines going up on a graph, right? I'll also just sort of flag there that the larger economic waters that this AI boom is happening are not smooth ones. It seems pretty clear that we're in a bit of an economic bubble, and the debate that we're having right now is not if that's true, but if it pops and when it pops, like how bad will it be? Will it just be a deflation, or will it be a bit of a bloodbath? So I think one effect of having these pauses on the books is that it lets the kind of irrational exuberance of the market kind of more gracefully exit the stage. Rather than something I am quite worried about is having communities have data centers placed in them, whether by consent or through imposition by a different level of government, and the market crashes, and those facilities might end up as stranded assets and a cause of some urban blight. So those are the kind of storms I see ahead on the horizon.
It's a fascinating time to be alive. And I really appreciate the perspective you could provide on this. Thanks very much for joining the show today.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
Ann Pasek is a Canada Research Chair in Media, Culture and the Environment and an Associate Professor at Trent University. Hamilton is the first. Is Hamilton the gatekeeper at the municipal level for other municipalities across this country? Close to 24 other municipalities have already asked for a copy of Hamilton's legislation. What does this look like? How could we perhaps apply it to our own jurisdiction? And where are the provinces and the federal government on this issue? I used to joke at home that the wars of the future, perhaps not, in the traditional sense of wars, but the battle will be over water and electricity. Maybe data centers fall into that now as well, or because they are so dependent upon energy and other resources, it's sort of a subset of the same issues. But never would I ever have thought that these data centers, and you talk about that economic bubble and whether or not it bursts, and these data centers just become urban blight down the road as disused, unused facilities. But never would I ever have thought of something like a data center being something that is so contentious in communities, given the directions we're moving, of course, in tech, the prevalence of artificial intelligence today. Somebody's got to power these things. And if we want our own sovereign tech, then wouldn't we want these facilities within communities in our own country? As I said, an interesting time to be alive. Always interesting things to talk about, too. On the Mike Farwell Show, this is 570 News Radio and Rogers TV.
I think the Fed's assumption was that, light industry provisions were going to be adequate for the job. But I think certainly emotionally, a lot of these communities don't feel that to be true. And materially, again, we've seen the scope and scale of what a data center is change quite substantially in this AI race. I think the kind of premise of that falls apart once you apply some scrutiny there.
Ann Pasek is a Canada Research Chair in Media, Culture and the Environment, as well as an Associate Professor at Trent University, joining us this morning to talk about the city of Hamilton becoming the first municipality in this country, but certainly will not be the last or the only, to press pause, declare a 1-year moratorium on the construction of AI data centers. And I can't help but wonder, we've heard folks talk about it here in the region already, sometimes on weekend protests or rallies in public squares around this region. Folks are out there talking about the evils of data centers due to the environmental concerns. So even though there is not one yet proposed here, those rallies against are happening just on environmental grounds. And of course, as I mentioned, there were some whispers that the Wilmot Land Assembly may be to support a future AI data center. We don't know any of these things for sure. However, I can't help but wonder if this conversation comes to our doorstep sometime in the future. In our immediate future here on the show, about 10 minutes from now, just after the 11:30 news, we're going to talk about the idea of a wealth tax here in Canada. And speaking of wealth, I think it's time that we reminded you of the wealth that you could create for yourself today. And you can do that very easily with as little as $10. If you go to cf5050.ca, you can get entered into the Farwell for Hire 50/50 raffle. And the take-home prize in that raffle is almost $90,000. It's been moving awfully quickly in the last hour or so. And I'm confident it will be worth more than $90,000 by the time we award the prize just after noon today. But that means you've got just over 30 minutes to go to get your tickets in the Farwell for Hire 50/50 raffle. The jackpot, more than $179,000. Look, there are some other things at stake here as well. Not only do you have the opportunity to win more than $90,000 for yourself, that's $90,000 for cystic fibrosis research. But if that take-home prize can get up another $10,000 in the final 36 minutes of this raffle today, I will, for the entirety of the next NHL season, make the team that shall not be named my team for the season. I will cheer for them, abandoning my Maple Leafs and cheering for the team that shall not be named. But the jackpot has to reach a certain amount. I'm willing to do pretty much anything for the charity that means so much to me, cystic fibrosis. But I'm not just going to throw myself at the mercy of the courts here. You've got to earn that by your purchases in this 50-50 raffle. So in the final 35 minutes, will we see that jackpot move $20,000? That take-home prize move $10,000? That remains to be seen. But again, you can get a ticket anytime at cf5050.ca. Well, anytime, as long as that time is before noon today, because that's when we close ticket sales. A reminder that last year's winner of more than $120,000 bought their tickets on the morning of the draw. Just putting it out there. That's just what happened last year. A computer generates the number. This isn't run by the radio station. It isn't run by me or my family. It's run by the Alcohol and Gaming Commission of Ontario. But hey, last year's winner bought their tickets on the morning of. I received an email earlier from Byron as well, wondering what happened to eating the hot wings while wearing the jersey of the team that shall not be named. We passed the threshold for that challenge yesterday. If the jackpot got to $150,000, I pledged to do that. Rather than do it today, though, I wanted to keep the focus on the jackpot and the ultimate winner. But as soon as I'm back from a long weekend, I took a couple of days off Thursday and Friday after Canada Day tomorrow. As soon as I'm back Monday, we are going to do that. So if you're interested in watching me suffer, it'll be on Rogers TV Cable 20 as well. Monday at noon, my buddy from Ginger Goat Hot Sauce is going to be in studio. Morty's is going to send in some wings. I'm going to eat all the wings, try to keep it together on the show while wearing a jersey of the team that shall not be named, because you passed that threshold. You met that challenge. Will you meet the next one? It's entirely up to you. We have got just over half an hour to go. Take-home prize of $90,000. Does it go up $10,000 more in the final 30 minutes or so? Get your tickets at cf5050.ca. And when we talk about a wealth tax for Canadians after this update from the 570 News Center, this is tax-free money, my friend. You will win $90,000, maybe $100,000 tax-free money helping out cystic fibrosis research. Get your tickets, cf5050.ca. It is a conversation that has come up in the past, and dare I say, it will come up more frequently in the future, because the gap between the haves and the have-nots, if you will, is growing. People who have money and lots of it continue to accumulate that money, while those of us who have less money are not accumulating nearly as quickly. So that gap between the wealthiest and the poorest continues to grow. And that has raised the issue again of a potential wealth tax in this country. Should the ultra wealthy pay a little bit more to, help out the rest of us? Jared Walker is the executive director of Canadians for Tax Fairness and joins us for a conversation. Jared, good morning.
Hey, how are you?
I'm all right, thank you. How are you?
I'm well. Beautiful day today.
It certainly is that. I couldn't agree more. I wanted to start with a conversation around wealth concentration and the extreme nature of it. Canadians for Tax Fairness recently put out a report to this regard. What are we seeing when it comes to the number of ultra wealthy families and how much wealth they collectively hold?
Yeah, I mean, it's a dire circumstance, right? In the U.S., Elon Musk got a lot of press, obviously, for becoming the first trillionaire in history, which is kind of scary. But here in Canada, we are by no means immune to this, right? In Canada, we've got 4.4 million people living in poverty at the same time that just over 3,000 families have over $100 million a pop in wealth each. And so there's this massive gap, as you said, between people who have more money than they could spend in several lifetimes and people who can't find a roof over their heads. And that's going to continue to be an issue unless we do something about it.
What problems does wealth inequality like this create, Jared?
I mean, there's a few problems, right? There's the sort of big brain, what is this doing to our democracy problems, which are very important, right? This when people have this much wealth, it means that they have disproportionate power, which means that that we don't really effectively have a system where everybody has one vote and one say. We have a system where people can buy influence and continue to move the democratic process in a general direction. But it also means very practically that we used to have a social contract where everybody buys in, everybody pays their share, and everybody benefits with a certain ceiling and a certain floor. And right now what we are seeing is that both the ceiling and that floor have started to collapse, and that what that means is that people who are extremely wealthy do not pay their fair share, and the burden falls on everyday people, on middle-class people, on working-class people, and on the very poor. And that means that we can't do a lot of the things that it's necessary to do. And I mean, you see that here in Waterloo region, you see it across Ontario, right? We live in a province now in Ontario where over 3 million Ontarians don't have a family doctor, where over 1,800 schools are in Ontario are below a state of good repair, and part of that is because extremely wealthy people have figured out how to game the system and, in fact, structure the system so that they pay proportionally less tax than working class people. And when the people with the most money don't pay into the system, things stop working. And so what we're saying with a wealth tax and with some other tax reforms that we would want to put forward is to basically say, hey, how do we counteract this K-shaped economy, which is what economists call it, where a very small section of people at the very top continue to do really, really well, and everybody else is in a downward spiral that they can't get out of.
You mentioned earlier, Jared, that this problem will only get worse unless we do something about it. What can we do about it?
Yeah, I mean, well, I think first to say it will only get worse, and it has only gotten worse. So for those of your listeners who remember the 90s, like that the 90s were not some sort of socialist utopia, right? But the top 1% since 1999 has accumulated $3 trillion in wealth, right? So this problem has gotten worse. So what can we do about it? Well, one of the things that we are proposing is a wealth tax. On the federal level, ideally, so that we can do this across all of Canada. So a tax on wealth, starting at wealth over $10 million, then an increased tax on wealth over $100 million, and we would graduate it that way, and that would bring in nearly $1 trillion in revenue over a decade if we did that federally. But also here in Ontario, if we say, look, the federal government does not seem keen on this, we've also broken down the numbers across provinces so that people know that there are things that their local governments can do to address this as well. So a wealth tax in Ontario could bring in $2 $20.9 billion in a single year for public services. And what that means is, to my points earlier, is with $20.9 billion in 1 year in an annual wealth tax, you could cover the cost of fixing every broken school in the province, and you could cover the cost of getting everyone a family doctor and getting and investing in nurses and other things to shore up our primary healthcare system. This is the extent to which the ultra wealthy have kind of insulated themselves from the political process, that they have managed to take this much stuff off the table by not paying their fair share.
How concerned are you, Jared, that if we apply these additional taxes to the ultra wealthy, in our definition, 10 million, 100 million, and continue on beyond from there, that this wealth will then leave the country, taking with it any opportunity to tax it more and taking with it the jobs and innovation that it has created in this country?
Yeah, I mean, this is a very often asked question, and I think a reasonable one. When we look at the context of when this has been done in other places, it turns out the capital flight is highly overestimated, right? So all of these taxes have built in them some degree of quote unquote non-compliance, of people, avoiding dealing with the law. But as it turns out, when we look at whether it's individuals or large corporations, if you look at, for example, New York, where Zohran Mamdani said, he's coming in, he's going to tax the wealthy, he's going to put a tax on luxury properties, these sorts of things. People have not left. In Massachusetts, similarly, there is a millionaire tax in Massachusetts that has actually overperformed expectations every year because fewer people left Massachusetts than they expected when they structured the tax. Because the fact of the matter is that if you have $100 million to your name, you live where you want to live. And the things that lead to investment, the things that lead to people to pay into the economy don't change because of what is essentially a very marginal tax. Like, we're talking about a 1% tax, a 2% tax on this kind of wealth. This is a rounding error for most of these folks, right? And it doesn't change the fact that people want to live where they want to live. It also doesn't change the fact that, frankly, most of these people make their money, and most of these corporations make their money here in Canada specifically. And where would they go? Where are the big five banks going to go? Are they going to pick up sticks and go to Singapore? No, they're not. RBC is staying put. Irving Oil is staying put. Cenovus is staying put because they need this money because they make it here and they don't have an opportunity to make that same revenue elsewhere. So I think this is one of those situations, you're in a bad relationship and you gotta tell your significant other, hey, I'm not going to take this anymore. You got to back yourself. And we as Canadians have to know that this is one of the best countries in the world to live in, one of the best countries in the world to invest in, has one of the best, most educated workforces. We've got a really great social safety net, which people know, so that they don't have to pay for benefits like they do when they invest in and create jobs in the U.S. There's a reason people want to be here, and we've got to back ourselves against these extortionists who claim that they're going to leave when they have absolutely no intention to do so.
Jared, I appreciate the time you've made for the show today. Thank you very much for being here.
Thanks for having me. Everybody get outside and enjoy the beautiful weather.
Jared Walker joins us. I can second that. Executive Director, enjoying the beautiful weather, that is, of Canadians for Tax Fairness. Is it time that we implemented a wealth tax in this country for the ultra rich, starting at $10 million, moving up at $100 million, et cetera? One of the things that Jared said there resonated with me because he talked about having so much wealth you couldn't spend it in your own lifetime. And it always reminds me of a quote, and I think it was a real one, that was given by Garth Brooks, the country music megastar, who once said, "I have more money than my grandchildren's children could spend." That's a perspective that perhaps not everyone has. How much wealth is $1 trillion, which we talked about when it comes to Elon Musk a couple of weeks ago, right? 1,000 millions is a billion. 1,000 billions is $1 trillion. That's what Elon Musk is currently at, $1,000 billion. It's absolutely remarkable to think about that kind of wealth. And the other thing I would say, from the perspective of Jared Walker and the Canadians for Tax Fairness and any support we would have of a wealth tax, it's always easier to say, yes, tax that person more. But what about ourselves? I know we're not in the ultra wealthy class. Totally get it. But these are always interesting conversations. And I'm sure they're going to continue to come up even more often as that gap between the wealthiest and the least wealthy continues to grow. What do you think of the idea of a wealth tax in this country? Is it time that we were to implement one? As Jared Walker points out in that last answer to the question about the wealth leaving the country, he's not so sure, and he points to other examples that suggest it would not leave the country. Should we bring a wealth tax into Canada? We'll take your calls, get your thoughts after this on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio and Rogers TV.
We've got a really great social safety net, which people know, so that they don't have to pay for benefits like they do when they spin and create jobs in the U.S. There's a reason people want to be here, and we've got to back ourselves against these extortionists who claim that they're going to leave when they have absolutely no intention to do so.
Jared Walker is the executive director of Canadians for Tax Fairness, and their recent report entitled "Show Me the Money: A Provincial Overview of Extreme Wealth in Canada" proposes it's time for a wealth tax in this country. The numbers are rather staggering, to be honest with you. There are an estimated 86 billionaire families in Canada, and the greatest number of those billionaire families, 38 of them, live here in Ontario. In this province, the wealthiest 1% of the people have more than 22% of the wealth. That is an awful lot of wealth concentrated in very few hands. And so the question is being asked, do we need a wealth tax in this country? Let's go to the phones here from you. Marius, good morning.
Good morning, Mike. How are you?
Good, thanks. And you?
Nice and hot.
Attaboy.
We already have a wealth tax. It's called a higher tax bracket. You know, if I make more than 100,000, 200, whatever, I'm already paying more than somebody who makes 50 or 60.
For
sure. So you want to tax on another tax? Sounds like wishful thinking by the NDP, pretty much.
Well, but you realize, though, Marius, for average folks, because real wealth isn't $100,000 to $200,000. Real wealth is millions and millions to tens of millions and hundreds of millions. And when you get to that level of money, you use that money to find all sorts of ways to avoid paying tax.
Yes, of course, but there should be incentive, I think, for people who are smart enough to make loads of money to stay here. You know, they could easily just leave. Ask our prime minister right now.
That's a great point, and that's why I asked Jared Walker of Canadians for Tax Fairness about it. What happens if the people who have accumulated all of this wealth here through the risk they took, the innovation they created, kind of took their money and ran? And then if the tax structure is such that it becomes a disincentive for that next generation of innovators and wealth creators, because those who have amassed a fortune do usually have a cohort of likely thousands of employees beneath them earning a living. However meager that living may be in some instances, I get all of those arguments as well. But Marius's argument is not an uncommon one when we talk about the implementation of a wealth tax here in Canada. Speaking of wealth, it's getting upwards of $93,000 that could be yours tax-free money if you buy a ticket in the Farwell for Hire 50-50 raffle. But you have to buy the ticket in the next 5 minutes or so. We are closing sales at noon the current jackpot, more than $185,000. The take-home prize, just under $93,000. I don't think I'm going to have to make the team that shall not be named the hockey team I cheer for next year. I don't think we're going to get $15,000 more in the jackpot in just over 6 minutes. We'll see. A flurry of last-minute buyers. My buddy Bill sent me an email to Mike at 570news.com. Bill and I are long-suffering Leafs fans, so we are bonded. We are brothers from another mothers, Bill and I. He said, I begrudgingly bought tickets. I don't want you to have to cheer for that other team. I think we're safe, Bill. I appreciate your support of our charitable efforts. And Marino sent an email to Mike at 570news.com, and he wanted to know how the Hefner donation factors into all of this. Separate pots, Marino. So we're talking about the Farwell for Hire 50-50 raffle, where half the proceeds go to the winner, half the proceeds go to cystic fibrosis research. We also have our Farwell for Hire fund, which is what I've been out and about fundraising for every day this month, going to various businesses, going to various people's homes to do work, whatever it took to put money into that fund, which we use to fund even more research, but it's separate from the 50-50. So Hefner Lexus Toyota pledged a $6,500 donation to the Farwell for Hire fund if I can go without butter tarts for 30 days. I have got 17 days to go. I'm going to hold out. I will not eat a butter tart until July 17th, so I can earn that $6,500 donation from Hefner Lexus Toyota. That donation being made in honor of Hefner's 65th anniversary in this community. But they're not buying $6,500 worth of 50-50 tickets. They're donating that to our Farwell for Hire fund that continues to raise money and generate money through the fund for cystic fibrosis research. The 50-50 raffle is open to anyone. If you want to spend $6,500 on tickets, you go right ahead and do that. It's up to you, but you have to buy the tickets in the next 4.5 minutes. We are about to close ticket sales, and then stay very near to your radio and your phone, because as soon as we close ticket sales, we'll get everything sorted out with the Alcohol and Gaming Commission of Ontario, draw a winner's name, and call that winner. The take-home prize, let me hit refresh one more time, just a shade under. We're going to get to $93,000. The jackpot, $186,000. Go to CF. We just passed $186,000. More than $93,000 take-home, tax-free. Final minutes to get your tickets. We'll call the winner live on the air around 12:15. Last chance for your Farwell for Hire 50-50 raffle tickets. Down to the minutes left to buy. CF5050.ca. This is the Mike Farwell Show on 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Well, that was quite the wild ride, wasn't it? An increase of almost $50,000 in the overall jackpot, just under $50,000. An increase in about $25,000 to the take-home prize alone since yesterday morning when I got up. So the final 30 hours or so of sales in the Farwell for Hire 50-50 raffle put another $25,000 into the take-home prize. That take-home prize, more than $93,000, which means $93,000 more for cystic fibrosis. We are generating the final results, confirming all of those dollar figures, and we will, in the next 10 minutes or so, make the call to our 50-50 raffle winner. But before we get there, I want to begin here because it's a lot of fun to participate in something like this. We know the odds are far better than winning the Lotto Max, but we're also supporting a charity that means an awful lot to me and an awful lot to others in this community. That charity is Cystic Fibrosis Canada. And the Chief Development Officer there is Huda Al-Saidi, who joins the show. Huda, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mike. Thank you so much to you and your listeners and everybody who's supported this. We are so grateful. I'm so happy to be on the call with you.
So happy to have you here. Truly appreciate the time. And beyond just the time today, the work that all of you do at Cystic Fibrosis Canada means so much to the families who are navigating a life with it. But I don't know about you. I mean, I've been watching this jackpot go like a little stock ticker the last 24 hours or so. What's it been like on your end watching these funds continue to come in?
Oh, my goodness. So exciting. I can't even put into words how excited we are to see those numbers ticking up. It really means so much to us. But, of course, we know it means even more to the families that are impacted by cystic fibrosis. You know, we've come a really, really long way in the treatments that's available for many people that have cystic fibrosis, and that's a huge testament to the support that we've had from people that have supported the 50/50, from our volunteers, from other donors, from people like yourselves that, you know, do everything you can to support the cause. But we know that there's still so much to do. There's people who don't have access to treatments. There's people who the treatments aren't working for. And really, this disease is changing, right? It's no longer a childhood disease, but a chronic disease. And the future still looks really uncertain for many, many people. And so having these funds will allow us to invest in the research, the care, and the support that is really going to be life-changing for these people and their families.
$93,000 in one fell swoop, and nobody had to go knock on doors or anything like that to raise it. But, you know, an amount of this significance, how does that sort of compare to other opportunities? I know we just went through the Walk to Make Cystic Fibrosis History, for example, but what does this mean to the organization?
Yeah, I mean, this is really one of our top fundraisers of the year. And, you know, to just see so many people support it and back it in the ways that they can just means so much to us. You know, people can support the organization in many different ways. And whether it's buying a 50/50 ticket or volunteering their time, it all makes a difference. And again, kind of really to people that are, you know, maybe newly diagnosed, just recently received that diagnosis, it can be a very, very frightening and very challenging time as they're working to navigate what does this disease mean for their child, what does it mean for their families, or even people that are diagnosed later in life. They're like, okay, now I've got this diagnosis, things are starting to make sense, but, you know, where do I go from here? And so Cystic Fibrosis Canada is able to provide information. We're able to invest in research that's helping to find new treatments and really make sure that they don't feel alone, make sure that they're connected to a community that can help them through this very challenging time.
Beyond the month of May, Cystic Fibrosis Awareness Month, that annual Walk to Make CF History, and the campaign that we're so fortunate to do here in Waterloo Region, Huda, what ways does Cystic Fibrosis Canada engage in outreach and work to raise important funds for work on this disease?
Yeah, so, you know, the walk is definitely a very special event. It happens on the last Sunday of May every year, and it's just so beautiful to see so many people come out and support. But you're right, there are other ways that people can support throughout the year, whether that's becoming a monthly donor and giving a monthly contribution, making a gift at year end, like when a lot of people want to, make a gift on Giving Tuesday when gifts can be doubled. But there's also the opportunity for folks to organize their own fundraisers. And we see that a lot in what we call our change makers. These are people that are really making a difference, whether that's through hosting a barbecue or a bake sale or a bike ride or, you know, a gala. There are so many different ways that people can support. And we're here, our staff are here to support them with their fundraising and make sure that they're having a great experience, enjoying the event, and also, you know, making an impact on people living with cystic fibrosis. I
certainly understand that playing in a 50-50 raffle is a lot of fun. We're going to make a call to somebody that won $93,000 in just a matter of minutes. But hopefully, Huda, we're able to inspire some folks, help them understand more about what cystic fibrosis is and the work that Cystic Fibrosis Canada does. If they are so inspired or inclined after following us this past month, what's the easy way for folks to get involved?
I'd say the best thing to do is to head over to our website and check out kind of all the different things that we've got going on. There are a number of different events happening in people's local neighborhoods, and many of those are listed on our website. Or if people feel inspired to organize something of their own, again, click on that Changemakers section of our website, and you can find out how to get started and how our team is here to help you.
Once again, cannot thank you enough for the work that you do and the entire team at Cystic Fibrosis Canada. I hope you get a minute or two to savor this and maybe just relax, make it a long weekend for Canada Day like I'm going to do, and then we'll get back to raising more funds for this important research.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Mike. We really appreciate all your support, and thank you so much to all of your listeners that have contributed to this. It means the world to us. Thank you.
Thank you, Huda. I really appreciate you being here today. Happy Canada Day, and enjoy the rest of your day today.
Thank you. Same to you.
All right. Bye now. Huda Al-Saidi is the Chief Development Officer with Cystic Fibrosis Canada, giving you an idea of where all of these funds that have been raised are directed. Somebody is about to get the phone call that they have won $93,380. Is that somebody you? If your phone rings in the next 60 seconds or so, please answer. We'll call the winner and announce that name right after this. The Farwell for Hire 50-50 raffle comes to an end for another year, and we're going to hand out a big jackpot prize. This is the Mike Farwell Show on 570 News Radio and Rogers TV.
Rogers TV.
All right, Johnny, settle down for just 1 second. Johnny's email to Mike at 570news.com. Who the heck won? It's not on your website. Johnny, we're working on things, and we do have the winner's name and phone number. So I'm going to talk to the guys on the other side of the glass here. Marshall and Devin are going to dial that number right now, and we are going to make the call to the winner of the Farwell for Hire 50-50 raffle. Now, guys, I'm not hearing the phone yet. I need to be able to hear this so that they're trying to figure this out. We practiced earlier. We need to make sure that we can call the winner live right now. And I'm still not hearing the telephone, fellas. I heard the music. The music's over. Now it's time to give somebody $93,380. Marshall is going to run around to this side and join us. This is a very crowded studio. Oh, no, Marshall went somewhere else. Okay. Hey, Dev, why don't you just make the call? Just make the call and do it the old-fashioned way. It's more fun if we can get them live on the air. That would be the best way to do it. But whatever. Listen, if your phone reads Rogers in the next 20 seconds, it's not, there we go. It's not soliciting for a new Ignite package, okay? Although you should have the top level Ignite package. I promise you that. Okay, we've made it. Here we go. Somebody is about to win. 93,000. Is your phone ringing? Is your phone ringing?
Hello?
Hi, is this Sandra?
Yes.
Sandra, whose last name starts with a K. Forgive me for doing it this way. But I hear a little bit of laughter. Sandra?
I just recognized your voice.
Oh, you did? Yeah, we kind of know each other, don't we?
Yeah.
Sandra.
I'm just wondering why you're calling me, actually.
Well, I'm glad you asked that question, Sandra, because I wonder if you bought a ticket in the Farwell for Hire 50-50 raffle this year.
Yes, of course I did.
Of course you did, because you're a good person and a good friend.
I'm just going to put you on speaker, Mike. Hold on.
Oh, great idea.
Eric, it's...
Oh, well, so you're Sandra, who are you with right now?
I'm with my husband.
Oh, your husband. I recognize that voice, too. What's up, Eric?
Good morning, Michael. How are you?
Well, I mean, I'm pretty good because I get to sit here and call out winning numbers and names from the Farwell for Hire 50-50 raffle, and I get to give away money that is not my own. I'm a little bit like Santa Claus, maybe one of his elves based on my height. But how are you doing today?
Well, we're good. So how are things finishing up?
Well, things finished up with an overall jackpot of $186,760. And that means the prize for the winner is $93,380.
Wow, well done.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Well,
That's amazing.
It's very kind of you to say, but I should be saying congratulations to you because you just won $93,380.
Oh, come on.
You know what I just thought of? Do you remember last year when you called somebody that you work with and tried tricking them into thinking they won the 50-50?
I know. I'm just making sure this is really you. It's not one of the guys from work.
I definitely know it's you, but my hand is shaking. Are you being serious?
I would never kid you about something like this. I am being 100% serious. This is not the kind of trick you play on people at work. This is us calling you, saying, wow, congratulations, you just won the Farwell for Hire 50-50 raffle. And the studio audience goes wild.
Wow, that is great. Are we on air?
We're on the air. This is live. I'm glad you kept it clean there, Eric.
I know. I was about to say something to you, and then I better check. Well, that's crazy.
Yes.
Oh, my gosh. I don't even know what to say. This, never happens.
She may leave me now.
Well, she's got 93,380 reasons to go, I suppose.
Wow. Look at that.
Oh, my.
Here I didn't even buy my ticket till after the early bird to make sure we didn't win, and look at that.
It's funny. So you also, last year's winner, bought their ticket on the last day. When did you buy? So you bought your tickets after the last early bird last Friday?
Yeah, left the studio and bought mine, and then Sandra bought hers.
I bought mine that night after the last early bird draw because that was.
But Mike, look at the good news this time. At least we're 570 listeners.
There you go. We see. Right? So that's right. The last couple of years, we've had people listening to other radio stations here at the Rogers Kitchener Radio Group when they bought their tickets. But you are loyal, diehard 570 News Radio listeners, and you just won $93,380. What will you do with money like that?
Well, we may give some back to someone we know with a special cause. What do you think of that?
I think it's your money.
I shouldn't say. Yeah, it's not my money. It's Sandra's. I better be careful what I'm saying. So
I'm too stunned to. My hand is shaking. I'm actually crying a little bit. I'm sorry. I don't know what to say. Thank you. Holy.
Yeah. Moly.
Holy moly.
We're on the air now. We have to say holy moly. So how are you feeling, Michael?
I'm feeling quite good. I have one more little event, and it's an easy get-together with some friends who will help us cap off the fundraiser officially this evening. And I'm looking forward to putting my feet up tomorrow and getting a little bit of R&R.
I bet. I mean, what a campaign. And I think, and I don't want to speak to it because we haven't talked about this, but outside of the 50-50 as well, I mean, it was a huge one, right? I mean, some of these donations that you got and some of the events and how they paid off, I mean, final numbers obviously will be a little ways out, but it was a good one.
We were able to make a $27,000 drop with the Community Foundation for our Farwell for Hire fund today, which is a great number for our final full week. And yes, we'll have final numbers sometime next week, but the overall campaign total, is going to be a pretty good one. We're feeling all right. 13 years in, and this thing still has legs.
Yay! I don't want to ask, but are they having cocktails in the studio today?
No, there's no. Maybe. So I feel like because we've let enough go here for people to understand that we know one another. Can I pull the curtain all the way back here?
Sure.
And let folks know. So we are. We are talking to Sandra, whose name is on the winning ticket, and Eric Cudis, who are the founders and owners of TLC Pet Food in New Hamburg. Are tremendous. It just goes to, you know what this shows? That good things happen to good people, because you have been unbelievable supporters of our campaign, including $20,000 directly donated by TLC Pet Food this year for the Father's Day Challenge, and the donation because I loaded that truck with one bag of dog food. $20,000 into the fund, and a whole heck of a lot. 4 times that is coming back your way now through this 50-50 raffle.
Wow, I can't believe it. I'm in shock, actually.
Well, yeah, that's the luck of the draw, I guess. But thank you. I mean, thanks for letting us know.
The community for the support. Thank you.
Yeah, a little bit of a shocker this morning. So I've been watching we both have been watching the wheel spin on the 50-50 and watching it go up, and very excitedly, and there you go.
Do you know what, Mike? Actually, I just refreshed my screen on my phone, and 45 minutes it had to the draw, and I was like, oh, that's a good total. I thought, wow. And then, wow, I can't believe it.
Well, believe it. You are $93,380 richer today. And, I mean, you already were rich in terms of your generosity to this community. So we thank you for that. And we congratulate you on being the 2026 Farwell for Hire 50-50 raffle winners. Way to go.
Thank you.
We just passed another round of drinks around the studio in your honor. Okay, I'm going to put you on hold for just a sec, and we'll sort out some details here, okay?
Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you both, Eric and Sandra. They are the Cudises. And last year, Eric, because TLC Pet Food, our primary sponsor, put up $5,000 this year, 2 different $2,500 early bird prizes. Last year, Eric put up one of those and won his own early bird draw. And so he immediately bought more tickets with it. That's the only reason they buy, is to build the jackpot. And this year they waited until that last early bird prize had been awarded and then bought their tickets. So a week ago they bought, and today they win $93,380. That also means $93,380 goes to cystic fibrosis research. Yes. I love this studio audience, all the people here that tried or that helped make this thing possible, and you, of course, for your unending support. We are beyond grateful, raising more than $93,000 for cystic fibrosis research and boosting our Farwell for Hire fund for the same cause. We're going to get you an update from the 570 News Center, and then phone lines will be open for talkback between 12:30 and 1. And just a little note here, it's our last chance of the week because tomorrow's Canada Day, and I, for some reason, decided to take Thursday and Friday off. A long weekend ahead for me, so let's chat for our final 30 minutes today on The Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio and Rogers TV.
Take out the papers and the trash, or you don't get no spending cash. If you don't scrub that kitchen floor, you ain't gonna rock and roll no more. Yakety yak.
Don't talk back.
Just finish cleaning up your room. Let's see that dust fly with that broom. Get all that garbage out of sight, or you don't go out Friday night. Yakety yak.
Don't talk back.
It is our final half hour together for the week. Tomorrow is Canada Day, eh? I ain't coming to work. And then on Thursday and Friday, I decided, you know what? I'm going to be lazy. Take a couple of days off. Make it a long weekend. So after today, back on Monday, July the 6th, our last opportunity to converse about the issues of the day. And really, the opportunity that has been presented me to become even more obnoxious, as if you thought that were possible. But I will be even more obnoxious next hockey season when my Leafs, baby, and the number 1 overall pick, Gavin McKenna. And I cheer for them loud and proud because our Farwell for Hire 50-50 ended at $186,760, short of the $200,000 goal that would have seen me switch allegiances for a season. Either way, a great outcome for cystic fibrosis research, a great outcome for Sandra, our winner of the $93,380. That's the winner's share. But fortunately for me, my hockey allegiances can remain where they belong with those Toronto Maple Leafs. And the team that shall not be named will remain the team that never gets named. Well, never say never, but certainly not anytime soon. Not as long as I'm sitting here in this chair. Nonetheless, thank you for all of the support. We've had lots of fun. I will be, because we did pass the $150,000 threshold in the raffle, I will be, when I'm back next Monday, undertake the Hot Ones Challenge, where I eat increasingly hot chicken wings while continuing to host the show. And I will do that while wearing the jersey of the team that shall not be named. If I spill some hot sauce on that jersey, so be it. That's what happens when you're eating hot chicken wings. But we will do that in studio when I'm back next Monday. We'll do that at noon, so it'll be part of our talk back hour. We can try to converse with one another while I'm eating those wings. But that's the threshold we passed. The winner has been announced and awarded their prize, and we get the chance now for a talk back half hour. Let's get to the phones. Grant is here. Good afternoon, Grant.
Yeah, I think you need to figure out your glitches. I bought a ticket several weeks ago, checked my spam. There's nothing in there. There's no email. And I don't know why you kind of slam dunked me when I wanted to do a meet and greet with yourself.
Whoa, Grant. I showed up for that. You bailed on it. Come on now.
No.
Yes. Yes, I did. Grant, anyway, I held up my end of the bargain. You canceled on that. Please don't tell mistruths, please.
You mean this year you did?
You never asked me this year.
Yes, I did. I sent an email.
Well, listen, if you want to arrange one this time, we'll do it again then, Grant. But last year, when you reached out to have a get-together and I was going to bring Subway over and we were going to have a chat and a sandwich, you canceled on me.
And then you canceled shortly afterwards because of some personal problems.
No,
right?
That was 2 years ago. This was supposed to happen anyway. Grant, I did not bail on you, so please don't say that I did. I did not slam dunk you.
Well, I got an email back from whoever sets these.
Well, perhaps we didn't have time for a meeting like that this year, Grant, because we were doing lots of other things, trying to get as much community impact as we could. But nonetheless, is there anything else you would like to talk about instead of complaining about me and Farwell for Hire?
No.
Okay, that's fine then. We'll just move on to something else. I'm sorry you're all in a lather today. I wish I could help you more. But I did show up for that, or I was ready to show up for that meet and greet, and then Grant pulled the plug at the last minute, which is fine. It happens. But don't make it sound like I did something wrong. Kyle, you're on Talkback. Good afternoon.
Let's be happy and enjoy this, mid-Friday on a Tuesday, right?
I like that idea.
If I had the money, you know what I would do? I'd put that back in so that way you can make sure that Toronto Maple Leafs is a team that shall not be named. That's what I would do with the money. But honestly, congratulations, Mike. It sounds like you had such a fantastic time. Get some well-needed R&R. Enjoy Canada Day. But I'm glad that, the jackpot, the people that got it, the $90,000, that's a lot of money. And I'm glad that there's a lot of money going back into cystic fibrosis research. We bought our ticket yesterday. We had a last minute, but all for a good cause, and I'm super happy about it. Mike, well-deserved. You know what? Enjoy now, my friend. You sit back, relax. I know it's a little hot, but you enjoy a wobbly pop in your backyard and do a crossword puzzle, have a nap on the couch, watch some TV, do your usual thing. I can't wait to hear about how everything did for the Farwell for Hire, and maybe we should ask you, like, what's your favorite moments of this? Like, do you have chores that you hate doing but you enjoy doing because it's raising money? Do you have something that you always look forward to every year besides raising money for cystic fibrosis? I'm just curious, Mike, but have a good one and enjoy, my friend. Thank you.
Thanks, Kyle. I really do appreciate it. Listen, there have been a lot of chores over the years, not many of which are my favorite chores. We all have chores to do around our own homes. And during this campaign every year, I try to do as many as I can at my own home while doing so many at other people's homes. But in the back of my mind, I'm always remembering that we are doing it for a cause that means an incredible amount to me. So really, there's nothing I dislike. My favorite part, as opposed to a single or isolated event, my favorite part in this is the people that I get to meet. The number of connections that we have made back to my sisters, who had a tremendous impact on our neighborhood, even for the short time that they were with us. My sister Luann lived to be just 24 years of age before succumbing to cystic fibrosis. My sister Sherry, just 18 years old before she passed away, but they left a lasting impact. And I love the people that we get to meet that have had some connection to them or another connection to our broader cystic fibrosis community. And really, I've made so many good friends or acquaintances over all of these years, people that hire me on an annual basis or even have just hired me once, but we get to have these really cool chats while I'm doing whatever task it is I've been hired to do. So I have enjoyed immensely every moment that this campaign has provided. And when I think back on the month that was, our outing at Barry's Asparagus was always fun when we do the deep fried asparagus, the drive-through version. And we had drive-through and walk-up this year. We're bouncing all over the place out at Barry's Asparagus and Country Market. We had a smash burger event at Four Quarter Butcher Shop on Louisa Street. That was a first-time event, and we were hopping like that entire time. On a pretty hot day, we were standing at that grill serving up smash burgers, saw so many people there. The Cereal Griller Kitchen that came on board for the first time this year, and just a boffo night in Baden it was. So many people. Again, we were hustling all night, and in fact, what was it, the pulled pork we ran out of first, but there was such a great demand. It was awesome. Things like that, they fill your bucket, right? And you get to meet a lot of people and you see a lot of smiles and you hear a lot of stories. And there were a couple of stories that night at the Cereal Griller Kitchen that connected back to my family and to cystic fibrosis. And those are the heartwarming moments for sure. Of course, TLC Pet Food, not just the sponsor of our 50-50 raffle, but also huge contributors to this campaign year over year. And I got to spend some time out at their new building on Bleems Road in New Hamburg. This is an incredible local business success story that still operates. When they built their new facility, it's right there still in Wilmot Township. And this is a company that works in the United States now as well. So it's an international pet food provider, but just tremendous people, and the chance to hang out with that team, and they make you feel like you're a part of that team, and to share stories and to, have conversations. It's all just been, it's been wonderful. And we're already working on ideas. I think it's a pretty unique idea for next year. I won't let too much of the cat out of the bag. And just finishing one campaign, already talking about the next, but I'm pretty pumped about this idea. I think my beloved is already behind it as well. So we're going to put our heads together when time permits. And that's after we just take a few days to recoup and recover and count the money. We have to make an announcement of our final fundraising total, which will be the 50-50 raffle of $93,380, plus what was contributed to the Farwell for Hire Fund. So we'll give a grand total of the monies raised during this month, during the Farwell for Hire campaign. Hopefully we can get that number out next week at some point. But anyway, it's been a great year. We will reflect and recuperate and then start talking about what might happen next year. Just on Kyle's point about, putting money back in and then making me give up on my Leafs. It doesn't count now. The final number was 186,760. It had to get to 200 in order to make me change my team's allegiances. But you did a good job. You raised lots of money for cystic fibrosis research. We had some fun with it. And Marino had called earlier as well, or emailed, and wondered about the $6,500 donation from Hefner Lexus Toyota. That, too, is a donation going into our fund, which generates money annually for cystic fibrosis research, separate from the 50-50. Hefner Lexus Toyota made that pledge of a $6,500 donation because it's their 65th anniversary. And in order to earn it, I have to abstain from butter tarts for 17 more days until July the 17th. I'm going to make it, and we'll get that donation to the fund. But that is also separate from the 50-50 raffle, just so you're keeping it all straight out there. It is our daily talkback hour, shortened by half today as we wind things down here for the week, because I'm going to take some time off. So take advantage of the open lines, get something off your chest, and onto the air. It's the Mike Farwell Show on 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. The Daily Talkback Hour is your opportunity to weigh in on the issues of the day, or tell us something that you think should be the issue of the day. Phone lines open to you at 519-570-2545, star 570, and 1-800-570-5715. Mark is next. Good afternoon, Mark.
Hi, Mike. Congratulations on your campaign.
Thank you very much.
And yeah, awesome month for you. And enjoy your time off, Mike. I know you will. And is Larry filling in next week or this week?
Oh, that's a good question. I'm pretty sure yes to next week. The Thursday and Friday this week, I threw in my request a little late for that one, but the company accommodated. So I don't think Larry's here Thursday and Friday, but he is here, I'm almost certain, I'm here next week. What am I talking about? He won't be here Thursday, Friday.
Okay.
No, sorry about that.
Thing,
I will be
Mike.
here next week. Yes, sir.
One more thing.
Yeah.
I heard you talking about that light or the lamp from the airport.
Oh, yeah.
Very cool story, Mike. You know what you need to do now is get yourself an model airplane, flying over that light.
Not a bad idea. I'll give it some thought.
Enjoy your time off, Mike.
Thanks, Mark. I appreciate it. I was getting my time off all mixed up. I haven't taken a ton so far this year, even though you'd think I had, because of all the times I've not been in studio and maybe working remotely, including while I was out in British Columbia with the Rangers. Although I wasn't hosting the show then, the time difference was too much, but I was filing stories that you might have heard during the news. But anyway, it will start kind of piling up over July and August. So I will be gone this Thursday and Friday, and then in mid-July, I'll be off again. That's when Larry will be here. I'm almost certain that he will be here that week that I'm away in mid-July. But we'll worry about that down the road. Just don't think me too lazy when the holidays start coming in. The long weekend in August will be some extra time, another week in August, but it's the time of the year that we like to go on some holidays. If you missed that story that Mark is referring to, and folks have really been enjoying it on our Facebook page too, which I always enjoy your enjoyment of these stories. I don't know what motivated me to admit to it on the air not too long ago, but whatever. You know how it works on this show, right? I basically just say whatever comes to mind, and I will not hide the truth from you. So for whatever reason, not too long ago, I shared with you the little bit of mischief a couple of friends and I engaged in when we were teens. Once we got our driver's licenses and started having a little bit more of that freedom and independence, a place that we liked to go on our weekend nights is out to the airport. Back then it was the old Waterloo-Wellington Airport, we called it, a smaller airstrip, if you will, and there wasn't much in the way of barrier to entry to the airport area, right? Not like you'd see today for sure. Anyway, we found our way out onto the airport grounds and decided to help ourselves to a couple of lights along the runway. We left the light part, but we kind of took like the lamp shade or the light shade. and took them home with us. We each had a set of orange and blue ones, and I didn't really think a whole lot of it. I mean, just dumb kids doing dumb things, right? But a little notation appeared in the paper not long after, and I realized that what we had done was actually a little bit on the foolish side. Not only did we risk ourselves and our own safety by messing around with lights on an airport runway, but, we took something that really we ought not have taken. Anyway, so I never did fess up to it until recently enough when I mentioned it on the air, and that story made its way back to our friends at the Waterloo Region International Airport. And when we left for the Memorial Cup back in May, Chris Wood, who's the general manager out at the airport, said, "Hey, you owe us a couple of lights. Here's an idea. We'll hire you for Farwell for hire. It'll basically be your community service." So I went out yesterday and I got treated to all kinds of different things. I was blown away, but at how bustling this airport is out in Breslau, all the things that are going on, and the people and the passion that they have for their work was pretty incredible. So I was doing all kinds of things, including working with Brian, the electrician, on those very lights that I had 40 years ago taken away from the runway, a couple of them anyway. And when the whole day was done, not only did we get a donation for cystic fibrosis, but they presented me with a trophy of sorts. And that trophy was one of those runway lights mounted onto a stand that says Farwell for hire. And I can now make into part of our man cave in the basement back home. So you can see that picture on our show's Facebook page. Just look up the Mike Farwell Show on Facebook. And if you read the comments carefully, you'll notice one from a woman who indicates that she may know somebody else that got a hold of a couple of those lights all those decades ago. And that would be the mother-in-law of one of my buddies that I was with that night decades ago that we took those lights from the airport. So he must have fessed up to it to his family at some point along the way, too. It's always a true story here on the show. Something else that is true is tomorrow being Canada Day. They always have, we're going to have celebrations all over the region, of course, and Wilmot is not to be left out of those celebrations. And at the Wilmot Canada Day celebrations tomorrow, I have one way or another been bamboozled into sitting in a dunk tank. So if you are so inclined and you find yourself at the Canada Day celebrations in Wilmot, come on by the dunk tank. I am sitting there from 1:15 until 1:45. I'm not giving you extra time. No way. If you get there at 1:46, you're not getting the chance to dunk me. But if you're there between 1:15 and 1:45, I will be sitting in the dunk tank, and I look forward to having you take your best shot. In this case, I think quite literally. Thanks again for all the support on this year's Farwell for Hire fundraiser for cystic fibrosis research. I'm taking a long weekend. I'll be back on Monday eating hot wings and wearing a jersey of the team that shall not be named. My name is Mike Farwell. You are a force for good. Bye for now.